he didn't know that his mic could be multi-directional instead of just mono. Omnidirectional. So
Yeah.
when he talks, it's loud. When I talked, it was like I sounded like I was in the other room, and the microphone was right in front of us, but it was pointed at him. And I told him afterwards, I'm like, look, dude, I can fix the audio. And he's like, oh, it's no biggie. It's out there. I'm like, no, audio is a biggie.
For a podcast,
it's more important than the visual.
Before we get into the main episode, I got a funny anecdote. This is a work-related anecdote that I won't share on like the actual show that goes on the feed. Obviously, we're live on YouTube, so it's out there.
Yeah.
But so a couple months ago, I put in a bid for a listen assist system. I'm so pissed. I was so pissed off about this today. I put in a bid for a listen assist system. They allotted me like $17,000 for this listen assist system. I told them that it was only going to cost $11,000. So I need to get 3 bids. I get 3 bids. The low bid is like $5,000 or something. So I'm like, well, there's $12,000 still on the table. So I go back to him. I'm like, here, throw in this really expensive recording microphone, throw in these speakers, throw in this other outboard equipment that I need for other projects. I end up having to go back to them for bids like 4 times to get us even in the realm of these other bids. And it's still underneath everything else. So I go ahead and submit all 3 bids. 2 of the bids are just for my listen assist system. And then there's this one bid that's my listen assist system, plus like subs, recording mics, outboard processing gear, just a ton of stuff. That was in April. I submitted all that, right? So I've been getting my ass ridden about when is this thing going to get installed? And I'm like, I'm waiting on the purchasing department to purchase the damn thing.
Wait, they haven't done it yet? Like,
no, they haven't done it yet. And so every email I exchange, like, yeah, we're waiting. We reached out to them. We reached out to the company that does this, and we haven't heard anything back. So this morning, finally, I replied into the email chain, and I took the guy who gave me the bid, and I added him to the email thread. And I was like, Jeff, there was another question about something else, but I was just like, so I addressed that question. And I said, I'm also attaching Jeff. It's not his name to this email. Jeff is who I did all the bidding through. Jeff works for the company I'm trying to buy this from. Maybe Jeff can help us get this thing done. Jeff, could you let us know what we need from your end to do this? 17 minutes later, Jeff replied with all the information that they need to purchase this damn thing. And I'm like, what do you do? What, to quote Office Space, what is it would you say you do here? Because I managed to do your job with 1 email, and you couldn't do it in 3 months. And I'm also pissed because I went and re-looked at the bid like last week or the week before, and a ton of the stuff in there was like on special pricing. Some of it through the end of May, some of it through the end of June, but not until July 9th when this is being recorded. So I'm looking at this bid and I'm just like, this is all going to fall apart and this is going to go over budget because I padded it so much. Because you people couldn't do your part of the job. Like, I went and got the bids. I put together the package. I can install it. Just please buy me the stuff, because it's like, one, I need a listen assist system for old people, but also I need a bunch of this other gear to fix a lot of other problems in my theater that they're willing to give me $750,000 to revamp my sound system, but they're not willing to give it to me right now. And my sound system is older than I am. So they want to give me $750,000 over the next 3 years. And in 3 years, we'll actually like buy the new sound system. But I need stuff that I can fix this right now. And I need that like before the next season starts in, like 7 weeks. I have 7 weeks. I have a show that loads out Sunday and the next show doesn't load in for 7 weeks. And I'm just like, you guys are killing me. You're killing me. You're causing all kinds of stress that I can't handle. But yeah, that's my little work story. As long as we are kind of filling some time here, letting people join the stream. But I like it. Let's dive into the show. This week's episode of Here's What I Don't Get is brought to you in part by Just for Men. Is it Just for Men? Is that the thing that you put in your hair to make the gray go away?
I don't know. I don't have any hair.
My gray hair is coming back, so I'm going to have to start looking into that. So I'm hoping we can get a sponsorship deal I look skinny and great, but I can't do it with like gray hair. I wear reading glasses now and become this old man. It's miserable. Anyway,
Old man tab.
justformen.com/HWIDG. Maybe it'll work. Who knows? And welcome back to Here's What I Don't Get, from north to south, east to west, the only intercontinental podcast to tackle all of life's toughest issues and the longest consecutively running podcast on the See You Next Tuesday podcast network. I am your host, Tab Burton. With me today, all the way from down south in Paraguay, our friend, El Chaco.
Hola, mi enchilada. Tab.
Welcome back.
Hey, thanks, man.
Much more healthy than last week.
Oh, way better, way better. And I said to you before the show started, there's not a cloud in the sky. Our power is on. I don't want to jinx anything, but maybe tonight's the night.
Ironically, it is like storming in St. Louis, so the power could just go out at any moment.
Yeah. Well, do you guys get like tornadoes or something there, or what's going on?
Not like in the city, because it's all concrete. So most of the time, like that heat plume from the city causes storms to kind of break apart on the periphery, and they recoalesce in Illinois.
They take out the trailer parks.
Yeah, but like we get some bad storms. Actually, yesterday on my way home from work, I pulled up to a stoplight and like the block lost power for like just an instant, and then it was back up. And I thought, oh, I hope my freezer doesn't go out.
Speaking of freezers, I filled mine today.
Nice.
Yeah, I sent you a photo this morning, and we bought a piglet. Like the same day we bought the sheep.
Like a piglet.
No, hang on. Yeah. We bought the piglet like last year when we bought the sheep. And it was funny because like when it was there, we went to go and look at these sheep, and they were just kept in like this like total rundown barn. Like we were rescuing these sheep, like it was so, this should have been on a reality television show. These people should not have been
keeping
animals.
Yeah.
But like they were using all kinds of weird stuff for their animal care. Like they just kind of had this makeshift little barn, little corral area. But like while we were there, we hear this noise, and off in the corner, there was like this old beat up wardrobe, or like this old dresser, and popping out of one of the drawers was this cute little piglet. And it was the only pig in the whole place. And so when we were making the deal, I was like, how much extra for the piglet? And it was like 150,000 guaranis. So in US dollars, about $20, like about $20.
Hell yeah.
So we're like, yeah, throw in the pig. And we have a household, not rule, just tradition. I started it right away, where because I had only killed one other pig before, and I mentioned it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And this
they gave you the machete to do it, and we're like, oh, we've all done it.
Yeah,
El Chaco, you got to do it. We all done it. And then you did it, and they were like, none of us have ever done it.
That's the thing. So I had a bit of an opposite experience, but that pig's name was Ernesto. And so I just assumed Ernesto Che Guevara, right? Mm-hmm. And I have no problem slaughtering a communist pig, right? So we decided when we got our piglet, we were going to name Evo, named after Evo Morales, who is the former president of Bolivia, who is also a communist pig. And so Evo was basically our like trash compactor for a very long time. So any extra food we had that wasn't pork product, we would give to him. Mm-hmm. And we like the idea of basically turning our scraps into bacon. And so there was this buildup, and we were waiting. We're like, okay, like when are we going to slaughter this pig? And we were kind of waiting for him to grow a little bit more. And I thought it also would be a good idea to wait until the winter, because then he's going to put on more fat to insulate himself, which he did. But like after that experience with Ernesto, I made a point. I was like, look, I'm going to figure out the most humane way to slaughter the pig. And it turns out the best way to do it is just to shoot it between the eyes to stun it with a 22, right? But I don't have a 22. I've got a shotgun, but I don't yet have a 22. So I told my guy, I was like, hey, listen, this is how we're going to do it. All right. This is extremely important to me that we do it this way. I did all this like reading up on it. Like it makes the meat taste better when it doesn't suffer at the last moment. It does affect the flavor. And so I was very clear. I said, hey, what?
Is that because like stress hormones and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So like if it's stressing out at the moment of death, it's going to excrete a bunch of stress hormones into the meat. And I mean, you're basically eating the stress hormones as you go. So like, this is kind of why I'm against halal meat. You know, beyond the religious aspect of it, I don't like the idea of how they go about slaughtering, because it seems to me to be an unnecessarily cruel way to go about it. Now, I was killing my lambs, my sheep the same way, but like they're a little different, right? They're a little different. They're a very docile creature. So with the sheep, what you do is you know, what I would do is I made a whole ritual out of it. I would literally, I would bring out my Bible and I would like read a psalm before. It was more for me than the sheep. But you know, I would like calm everything down. Everything was going to be a very calm environment. I would turn them on their side, put them on the ground, and sheep don't have a lot of like defense mechanisms. They can just run. So if you put them on their side, they can't run. So you would put the sheep on the side, and then with a really sharp knife, you would slit its throat, and you try to do it as quickly as possible. And generally speaking, if you could do it as quickly as possible, you can get right to the jugular, you can get right to the esophagus, and you can make its suffering end as quickly as possible. But with a pig, they have a tougher skin and harder to get to that jugular, and it's harder to get to the esophagus. So the way I had to do it before with Ernesto, that pig squealed like really bad, and it just felt horrible. I hated the whole process. So I said to my guy, I was like, look, I don't have a 22. What do you got? And he's like, I got a 38 Colt. And I'm like, okay, we're not going to use that. But do you know anybody in the neighborhood that has a 22? And he's like, yeah, I know some people with 22s, but we don't have ammunition for it. And I said, well, that's great. I've got ammunition for it, because my friend Brad, who was an ex-military weapons tester, was down here, and he ended up moving back to the United States, couldn't take a bunch of his stuff with him. He just unloaded a bunch of like ammo on me. So I've got like shotgun shells, and I've got a whole bunch of these bullets for 22, but I don't have a 22 yet. I'm going to get one now, because this morning I wake up and my wife, there's this thing, like my wife and my kids know when I'm going to kind of blow. You know, they know when there's like bad news that is not going to get handled very well. And so my wife comes to me and she does one of these. She's like, and I'm like, they killed it already, didn't they? She goes, yes, they did. And I was like, what the fuck? Why? Like, why? I was so clear about it. I mentioned it so many times. So so they killed the pig. And I sent you the photos of it. It was a lot of meat, man. It was like 100 kilos of pig. And we were going to make sausage. So I ended up having to grab my guy, leave the other guys there while they're processing the pig. And we went into town, and I bought a bunch of like beef intestine to use for the sausage. But I had a chance while I was talking to him to go like kind of like a, dude, what the fuck? Like, I mean, like, I don't like to pull rank but I'm your boss. So, when I say I want something done a certain way, I expect it to be done a certain way. I had a plan for this. And he tells me, because this is the thing about what Paraguayans do, is they like to tell you what they think you want to hear, but they don't like to tell you bad news or anything. And in his mind, he had heard a story of another guy in another town nearby who had shot it with a 38 up close, and there was a ricochet, and he ended up getting injured. I was like, okay, well, that is a possibility, but I have protection, and I basically what you do is you put the food on the ground, lead the pig to the food. The pig is just completely just, you know,
Eating it
it's
up.
a pig. It's just eating the food, and then you basically just line it up and shoot them between the eyes. But like they also really love to eat the head of the pig. And so I also feel like he might have felt that might have like ruined that meat. And it's like, well, not your problem, right? So we had the talk, and I basically then so I have two employees. I have my full-time guy here, and I have a part-time guy in the capital that I use as a I call him my side quest guy, like in video terms, like or video game terms. I make him do all of my side quests because there's a lot of side quests here, and it just eats up my time. So, like for example, if I want to look up something, like I want to get my water tested, well, I could look up water tests, but like I need somebody who can look up where they do them, call them, talk to them in Spanish, arrange for everything, and then tell me a time. It's totally worth it to
And
me.
also not call and sound like, hola, me llamo El Chaco. What does a water test cost? And they're all like, yeah, white guy's calling again.
Yeah,
It
mark
costs
it up by
$1 billion,
500%.
El Chaco. $1 billion. I was like, all right,
That does
that's
happen.
only like $97 in Canadian dollars. So I guess that's a good deal.
I guess so. All right, I'll do it. But yeah, so they ended up chopping the pig up, and there's kind of like a tradition. They kind of take the spinal cord out, and then they cook a bunch of the meat that's attached to the spinal cord. And man, it was so good. It was out of this world. We had it for lunch. And they get all the organ meats, and so we cut up some of the liver, cooked that up, and had that with some rice tonight. And that's why my name is Half Man, Half Pig, because I am stuffed with pig from today's eating. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, for a $20 pig, yeah, I probably put a lot of food into him. Like, I mean, I had to also buy extra food, and he's a pig, so he eats a lot of it. But I mean, overall, I think the whole experience is pretty cool. And Evo, being a male, is kind of valuable around these parts. So we would get calls from neighbors who had a female pig. And the deal is, if you kind of, pimp out your pig, then you get one of the piglets in return. So we did that twice. Evo was able to get the job done once. It didn't work out the other time. So we've got his daughter, Eva, who is named after Eva Perón, the Argentine communist. And now I'm looking for a macho male pig to knock up Eva and then keep the whole thing going. But if we get a bunch of piglets, I'm gonna be handing them out or doing some sort of like a suckling roast or something like that, because they ain't no way we can handle having that many pigs on the farm. So that's bringing us up to speed on this end. I just wanted to, before you catch us up on what happened with your week, I'm drinking out of a genuine Tab Burt right now. This is one of the glasses I got from you. I love these, man. They fit my hand so perfectly. It's
really happy to hear that.
Absolutely perfect. So I'm drinking Fernet tonight, and this one goes out to Evo. And also, we're gonna also ask for some prayers for our good friend Buck and his family tonight. for his grandmother who passed away. So if you guys can throw some prayers his way and his family's way, would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. To Bucky and
Cheers.
his family. I'm having a mint julep this evening.
That's so.
pretty good.
I every time I think of mint juleps, I think of that episode of King of the Hill
Mhm.
when they were going to Bill Dauterive's like family, like um it was a mansion, but like his like whole family thing. And I believe there was the dandy, his like his like brother or uncle or something like that. It was a bit of a dandy, and I think he was liking the mint juleps. But
Mm.
I've only had one once, and they are fantastic.
They're
They are
fantastic.
they're a fantastic drink, and
I
you're
drink
probably go
I
ahead.
drink a mint julep in honor of Leonard McCoy.
Oh, was that his drink?
Yeah, he talks about mint juleps a few times in the original series.
As Spock? Interesting.
No. Leonard McCoy's the doctor.
Oh,
You're
sorry,
thinking of
sorry.
Leonard Nimoy. Leonard
Yeah, okay.
McCoy is the doctor, played by DeForest Kelly. Leonard
Okay.
Nimoy plays
See,
Spock.
I only know him as Bones. I didn't know his first name was Leonard. If I got that, if I was at trivia night with you, I would have blown it.
Yeah. My week has been pretty laid back. I went out to Tulsa for 4th of July. We blew up a microwave. I
Dude, your footage was amazing.
posted the reels on Instagram. I got my friend Dustin took an incredible picture of me. So we're sitting in Truckin' and Tuckin's house. We have the microwave, we have the explosives. I'm wearing my I have this button-up shirt that I've been wearing for years on 4th of July that's like checkered red, white, and blue. I've got my 4th of July shoes on, and I'm like, you know what we need? We need a flag. This would be so much better if we had a flag. And I go, Truck and Tuckin, do you have an American flag around here somewhere? He's like, no, I don't think so. But I do have some flags. I have those flags you bought me a couple years ago because Tim and I were going to do a YouTube series, and I bought all these joke flags that are hanging up over here in the basement. And Truckin' and Tuckin and Tim both were like, oh, I kind of like this flag, kind of like this flag. So I bought like 25 flags for the show, right? That never got made. And I ended up buying some duplicates for them of ones that they liked. And apparently Truckin' and Tuckin ended up with an American flag. So he's like, I do have an American flag. Check this out. I walk out
Perfect.
on his porch. He's got this stick of wood that is exactly the width of the American flag. We zip
That's
tie that onto there. We go set up the thing to explode. I'm running with this American flag. Looks amazing. We blow up the first microwave, walk over there, and I do like a Captain Morgan pose with one foot on the
Oh,
microwave.
I love that photo.
I've got the
Perfect.
flag braced against my leg, and the wind kind of picks up just as Dustin snaps the photo. And I have this like shit-eating grin on my face. I've got a Mike's Hard Lemonade wedged in my hand with the flag, and I mean, it's just a fantastic photo. So that's in my Instagram if anyone wants to check
Oh,
it
it's
out.
perfect.
Came back to town this weekend. Went to work yesterday. Went to work today, and this is the other part of today that has me a rage. We were scheduled to have a meeting about the upcoming loadout of this dirt show that I talked about last week. Standards
Now
and
you're gonna
practices,
piss me off
people.
because I know this story.
Yeah. We were supposed to have this meeting at 11, and they were supposed to show up and take some stuff out of the scene shop at 11. 11:30 rolls around, nobody's there. We send a text message, "Hey, why aren't you here yet?" We were waiting on our van. Someone went and took the van to go do this thing. As soon as it gets back, we'll be over. We end up locking up the theater and leaving about 3:45, 4 o'clock. And then there's a text message that comes in, "Hey, can we come in tomorrow at 10:30?" And I absolutely wanted to say, no, you can absolutely get fucked. Unfortunately, I don't have that ability. So I just like had my whole day wasted away sitting around doing fuck all. And not that I had like so many pressing things to get done, but it was just like I sat in this holding period all day where I was like, I don't
Yeah,
want to get jumped into a project and then have
right.
it be like, hey, we're here. Can we do this meeting?
Consideration.
Just have some
No
5
class.
seconds to send a text message.
No class. No
Chuck and
class.
I were texting about this today as I was on my way home because I was
I
pissed
hate that,
off.
dude. Like I just, dude. So I told you on the thing, I was like, man, because like I have my other show. I'm keeping it open, but I don't know when I'm going to do it again. But it's called uh,
High trust, low context.
High trust, low context, right? And if you know about the concept of context, like high context, low context, like I come from a low context culture, right? Like where you're just direct. I'll be
Yeah.
there in 5 minutes, and then I'm there in 5 minutes or 4 or 7 at worst. You know what I mean? So there's something that is one of my biggest pet peeves is bad communication that could be
So
just simply done.
yeah, uh, I started dating this person a little over a month ago, and we've had a couple, not fights, not squabbles or anything, but like I'm very autistic. I know that about myself. And we've had a couple of things pop up where it's just like she's had to tell me what she needs much more directly than maybe you would tell another person. And then there's like this weird apology. I'm like, you really don't have to apologize. I am my feelings aren't hurt when you say I don't feel well. I want to be left alone, because now I know when you don't feel well, leave you alone. And
Yeah,
the only way
it's
that
good
I'm going to know that
communication.
is if you say, this is what I need. And I'm
It's
100% on board with being told that, because I am kind of an idiot when it comes to reading people. So, like, there's really no need to apologize. You read, you didn't like attribute ill will to what I was doing, which is half the battle. It was just like, I know you're trying to be helpful, but this is not what I want.
it's
And
fascinating to
so
me.
like that's all I needed. Just be like, I don't want this from you. And when I don't feel well, I'm like, all right, 100% on board. Let's do it.
You mentioning that's fascinating to me. I It seems to me like autism would favor low context communication more than anything because you're not reading the body language
Yeah.
as sharply. Whereas down here they hate low context communication. They don't like confrontation. They don't like conflict. So, like when I was pissed off about them killing the pig this morning, I had to use high context communication with them. So it was him driving up with our truck with the pig in the back or dragging on a sled on the back. And, he's usually like used to me being like very like, hola, buen dia, like all this kind of stuff. And I was silent. I was just, and it was like, because I didn't want to chew him out in front of his friends.
Mm-hmm.
But like at the same time, I wanted him to know I'm not happy. I'm not
Yeah.
happy with you. And then of course had to do it with them in the truck. But um, yeah, it's just this whole thing too. You mentioned about it's like it's a 5-second text, right? Like,
Hey, not going to be there. Not going to be there today. Because here's the other part that annoys me. So, my direct subordinate is a father, and one of my major priorities with having a direct subordinate that has a son is that his time with his son is to me more sacred than whatever free time I have to fuck around and do whatever I'm doing. So it's summertime, his son's out of school, and him and his ex do this like 1 week on, 1 week off thing. So this is his week with his son. And so his son comes to work. We work on projects together. He's a sweet kid. I don't mind having him around. But one of the things they were talking about this morning was, hey, what if we just didn't go in today? His son was trying to sweet talk him into not going in today. And me being the boss, I don't give a shit. But
well, especially when you're waiting around.
yeah, on if it was if we didn't have this meeting, if we didn't have this intention for to have people in the space, and he had texted me this morning and been like, "Hey, we're thinking maybe we could work remote today," I'd be like, "Fucking go for it! I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
cruise in late. I'm gonna drink a pot of coffee. I'm gonna cruise out early. It's gonna be a great day." Uh, which sounds lazy, but it's summertime. There's nothing going on. There's not a show today. I have no reason to be there. I have to be there tomorrow because there's a show tomorrow. But like that's one of those things. If it was like, hey, we can't make it today, had come in at 11:30, I would have immediately turned and just been like, hey, why don't you guys go to lunch and not come back? Because that's what I'm gonna do.
Day drink.
Like I'm gonna go to the gym and run for an hour, and then go home, shower, make dinner, do this podcast with El Chaco. I could do all that today, but instead I sat at work until 4:00, which is even still. I was just like, I'm done. I cannot sit here and wait any longer. I'm going home. But I could have done that at 11:30 when they didn't show up instead of doing it at 4 in the afternoon because there's nothing going on. It's so irritating. It's so just having your time boiled away by someone is just so inconsiderate that it makes me want to scream into space.
When you're late, like when you're significantly late, how do you feel about it usually? What's your take on being late?
If I have a committed time to be somewhere and I am not on, so I've grown up in theater. I've grown up being a stagehand, and the saying in that is, "On time is late." Or sorry, early is on time is late, late is fired. That's so if I am less than 5 minutes early, I feel late, and like that is a like I show up to stuff early all the time. I am the guy that is sitting in my car outside your party until 7:15 when the invite said 7 because I got there at 6:50, but I didn't want to like walk in. I didn't want to be like ring your doorbell at 7:00.
I hate
I knew that would be
fashionably
weird
late
too.
too, man. I just wish we could just be straight with each other and be like, just show up at fucking 8, man. Just show up at 8. I'm gonna bring that into my issue.
Well, do you want to hop into it?
Yeah, let's do that. All right. So here's what I don't get. Doctors. Doctors. And this goes for all doctors. All of them. Every single one of them.
Yep.
Every single one of them. I mean, we're not just talking medical doctors. I'm talking like professor doctors. I'm talking just the fact that you have to call them doctor. Like it's the only profession, it's the only level of education that you must call them doctor. Mm-hmm. Dr. So-and-so. And man, like I used to have such a huge respect for doctors. At one point in my life, I actually even contemplated, when I was in high school for a cup of coffee, I was thinking, maybe I could, go be a dentist and like make a crap ton of money as a dentist. But like, man, oh man, I don't know if it started before COVID, but it certainly ramped up during COVID. My distrust and my disdain for doctors. We went to. Here's the thing that I really don't like about doctors is now I get it if it's your profession. Like I don't like it when I have a client that they'll get these clients and they'll have like their own in-house guy, and that's his job is like putting out like press releases, and it's like it's cool. You do press releases, you do website copy, you do what your company needs you to do. I do marketing, I do articles, I do advertorials, I do landing pages. This is my business. I do these every day. So I'll take your input, but I'm not going to like acquiesce that you know more about how to do this than me. Now, I get that, especially with doctors. But here's the thing. When you go into a doctor's office, when you get your appointment, bedside manner is gone. It's dead. It's gone. There's no such thing anymore. And so what drives me crazy is when you come in there and it's like you got this like little bit of a rush going on, because like usually the doctor's also freaking late, like almost all the time. They're like running behind. And you've had to wait. Or if you're in Canada, you're waiting for like days. Like it's just ridiculous to get a doctor. So you're waiting. You finally get in there. You've been, like you go to some doctor's offices, they'll like weigh you and measure you and make sure you're take your blood pressure, and then you get to talk to the doctor. So the doctor comes in, and because like you've been dealing with the symptoms. And of course, like clockwork, the symptoms disappear as soon as you're in his office or her office. So you're trying to tell the doctor what you're going through. And of course, if you've gone and like tried to look up what it is that it might be, you try to tell them everything that you've gone through. You're like, dude, I think it might be this thing. and instantly they're like pissed off at you because like you're trying to like diagnose yourself. They're like, it's not that. It's definitely not that. And it's like, how do you know? You've been in here for like 3 seconds and you're instantly telling me that it's not that thing. You know, and the other thing is like, okay, so the thing about doctors is Merlot just commented that they're basically shitty mechanics. If you, yeah, and I get that. Like that is, but they're worse than that. They're prostitutes because there's this other profession in the medical industry, which is a drug rep. And so the drug reps, they come in, usually they're like a 9 or a 10. Like they're usually like really charming, attractive people, right? They come in with their little carrier bag that they, come in, and then, the doctors love them because like they get to go on a cruise because of this drug rep. They get all kinds of things that come up with
all the swag.
All kinds of swag, but the swag is often dollars because the thing is that if you prescribe somebody, it's like you get a commission.
Yeah.
Right. And so the thing that it's like we've been working on some stuff with my son and trying to get some sort of an idea of what he's suffering through. And so, we got it really hard down here because like he doesn't speak very good Spanish. So we want him to be able to talk to somebody, talk to a doctor. So we have to find one that speaks English. And so we kind of, gone around for a couple of things, and we're going for, like some to deal with psychological stuff. And, like we're experiencing it in our daily lives. So we're writing all these notes down and we're coming up with all this stuff, and then we're presenting it to these doctors, and they're like, no, it's not. He's just anxious because of the move. And it's like, well, then why were we experiencing it before the move? Right?
And
like why
2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, we've been here 3 now. I've actually been here longer now than I was the first time in Paraguay. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. But, so like, I feel like there's been time to kind of acclimate.
Yeah. So like we went to this neurologist at one point, and we show up early, like a good person, like a good human being. We show up early and we wait. Fucker's late. Like, I mean, it's not even that. It's like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt if like, you got some patients that are a little wordy, and then, they're a little bit verbose, like I'd like to be, if you give me a chance. So I'll give you that. But if I'm your first patient of the day and you're late,
that's a bad start. Late. Yeah.
That's a bad start. And I had this all the time in Canada. It's not a Paraguay thing. This is a doctor thing. This is absolutely a doctor
They like taking advantage of your time.
Well, the other thing is they're so fucking important that how dare you question. I was delivering a baby. No, you weren't. You're a neurologist. Like it's like, dude, you weren't saving somebody from dying at the side of the street. Just get your shit together and get there on time. Because the thing is that, see, you being on time is a good sign. You being on time shows me you're organized, shows me that you've done a little bit of your homework. You're on top of things. You showing up late means you're a mess, and you're going to be a mess for the rest of this. This fucking guy talked to us for like 5 minutes, gives us the whole, no, it's just anxiety, proceeds to like analyze my son for like a hot minute, and then proceeds to prescribe the fucking most potent, like crazy, unnecessary anti-anxiety medicine to my son based on a 5-minute talk with us and a 1-minute talk with my son. And we're like, not even going to pick it up, not even going to look at it. So then we go and we found another guy, and it was a psych, and we were meeting with him, and he's an old timer guy, and he speaks English, and he's really, kind to my son and really cool about it. But like, we're bringing up these things. We're like, I don't know, man, like this is like kind of like concerning. This is a concerning thing that he's clearly suffering through. And no, he's fine. It's just the anxiety of the move. Fucking anxiety. What are you talking about? I know anxiety. This ain't it. So then, so we go to that guy. He gets us to kind of change up his ADHD medicine and do something, and it gets way worse. So we're like, okay, this guy's fucking up. We're gonna get somebody else, right? So then we go and we finally find two different ones, and my wife and I are like, which one do we pick? Right? Which one do we pick? There's two different ones we could go to, and we're like, we're like, let God handle it. We'll pick whatever one seems completely right. So first one's a lady. She comes back with, yeah, but I'm not covered by your insurance, and it's going to cost like $100 a session, which is cheap, but not here, right? Mm-hmm. So like, it's like, oh, I guess. All right. The other one was like, I'll do it in the university hospital, totally covered by insurance. And I was like, okay, well, that made it easy, right? So we go, and like we had to get up early because it was like, it was like a 2-hour drive away. And the guy gave us a window. He's like, okay, I'm coming in on a Saturday, and I've got between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m., right? So my wife's like, well, typically it should take like an hour. So why don't we book the 9:30? And then if it goes an hour to 10:30, there's still a little bit of a buffer. We don't have to run out of there. So we show up at 9:20, right?
10 minutes early.
10 minutes early. We get there. We ask the person there, like, we're here for this doctor. And they're like, he doesn't come in on Saturdays. And we're like, well, he's gonna. And so my wife, we go and we sit down. She texts this guy. And this guy immediately sends a text back, say, yeah, I'm on my way. Cool. All right. He'll be here any minute. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on my way.
On my way to me means if I am not in my car, I am like keys in hand, locking the front door, walking to get into the car.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just whatever commute time I have to get across from point A to point B. And also typically for me, I'd be like, on my way, 15, 20 minutes. 25, 30 minutes.
For me, on my way is like, 15 minutes.
Whatever the
if
drive
it's going to be more than that, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
So get this. We're waiting there, right? This fucking guy, 9:30 hits. Okay. That's when we were supposed to have the appointment. 9:45 hits. All right. I mean, we'll give him benefit of the doubt, right? Maybe he hit traffic. 9:55, 10 o'clock hits. All right. Now you're officially a half hour late. That's late. Like kind of bullshit territory.
Because it's a 1 hour session, right?
So we thought. So then, we're waiting, and 10:15. Now he's a full 45 minutes late. Like, I've driven in Asuncion. You're not a 45 minute away from freaking anything. Like, if you live in Asuncion, which I assume you do, your commute, you should be here by now.
Yeah. That's like, I need to shower.
10:30. So it's now an hour late. This motherfucker showed up at 10:50.
An hour and 20 minutes late?
Yeah.
That motherfucker was in bed when you texted him. Yeah. I know, because I have had those mornings where I have laid in bed and not said I'm on my way, but just been like, I'm not.
And all we got was a sorry I'm late. Sorry I'm late.
Then went late.
Proceeded to hear our side, talk with my son, do a little test. 10 minutes later, he's writing a antipsychotic medicine prescription and gives us a full diagnosis of our son.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What medical genius was able to clean all of these things in
No, listen,
10,
you don't understand,
minutes?
Tab. This guy's a doctor. Like, he's a god among men. So he says to us, he's like, yeah, this drug, it's safe. You can put him on it. You can take him off of it. If it doesn't work out, no biggie. All right, we'll trust him. Okay. I don't know why I trusted him. We give him at 1 dose. It fucks him up. We're like, okay, all right. I want to look into this a little bit more. Sure enough, definitely. First off, this guy never weighed my son. How the fuck are you getting your dosages?
Yeah.
Secondly, he had a bunch of boxes of free samples of this shit in his office. That should tell you something.
Mm.
And then this guy, then this guy has the audacity. We tell him, we're like, no, we're taking him off this right away. Like, we're not going down this road. And he's like, oh, just half the dose. Have the dose. Have the dose? Half it? Okay. No. How about none the dose? How about what the fuck were you thinking? I looked this shit up, and this shit was way too potent. I fucked up. I should have done my homework beforehand. But here's the thing. Doctors hate it when you do your homework.
Yeah.
Right? And then it brings me back, because I had ADD. I still have it, but I mean, I had it when I was in high school. I got put on Ritalin. That was my jam, right? Ritalin was good for me because it was like 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours after lunch. And then after school, I bounce off the walls for an hour. And, you know, I was fine with it. But by the time I got into university, I was in engineering at the beginning. And, I couldn't bounce off the walls after. I needed that time to get my homework, like my studying done. Like, engineering's hard. And so she put me on Dexedrine. My doctor put me on Dexedrine, right? Didn't mention the potential side effects. Didn't tell me what could possibly happen. So I'm on Dexedrine for like a week. I can't sleep. I could not sleep at all. Because it's speed. It's speed. Mm-hmm. And so the thing is, I couldn't sleep. The only way
that's actually probably a sign that you're not ADD, because Ritalin is an amphetamine, and it's because ADD brains are wired backwards. Stimulants work the opposite. So you were probably on the wrong shit your entire life.
I was fine in terms of concentration. My switch could not turn off to go to sleep. So my only way of going to sleep was I would raid my parents' liquor cabinet, and I would just pound. Like, it was the worst, because like the most depressing sound in the world for me when I was in university, still living at my parents' house, was the sound of my dad grinding his coffee beans in the morning, because I knew I hadn't slept yet. And to hear that was like devastating. And it was messing me up big time. I was dating a girl at the time. I couldn't think straight when I was even like out with her. We ended up breaking up, and like, I went back to my doctor and I was like, I am ready to kill myself because I can't sleep anymore. My whole everything ain't working, and my whole life is falling apart, and I don't know what's going on. And then she pulls out her fucking book and looks through it
and reads the
side
and then
tells me the possible side effects. I'm like, why did you give me no heads up? No heads up. No heads up. And like, man, going back to like these doctors, man, like, do you know, like when during COVID, right? With during COVID, this is the thing that drove me crazy, is that like doctors should know as much as I do about approvals of drugs.
Yeah.
You should know about how these things are delivered. You should know how dangerous COVID wasn't. Because the thing is that when you talk to people, this is going to get us pulled, but when you talk to people who know somebody who died from COVID, it was in the hospital. They didn't die on their couch. They didn't die in their bed. They died in the hospital. To work. Why? Yeah. Because of remdesivir and blowing their lungs out with a respirator, right?
Yeah.
Because their protocols were wrong. But it's like, you had protocols before. You tossed them. Why? Because a doctor is a good boy. A doctor
Does what they're told.
follows orders. A doctor doesn't question anything. Why? Because they'll get their license revoked. Because you have to go along with it. And who determines what your license status is? Just some crony that was probably a board of directors member on, a major pharmaceutical company at some point in time. And so, like, the thing is that we have gotten to this point where, like, when you'd make an argument on something and then somebody would fire back, what are you, a doctor? No, actually, I am not. That actually gives me a little bit more critical thinking on this thing, because a doctor just goes tickety tick 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 and just knows, this is what we normally do. Throw the antibiotics at it, right? Just throw an antidepressant at it. Just throw whatever, like that cute rep who came in and got me, tickets to the Rolling Stones concert. That is going to be who makes my decisions for me. Because the thing is if I start getting a little bit too wrapped into this, if I'm not prescribing something to you, then I'm not going to be able to pay for my boat, and it's like, oh, it's so frustrating sometimes. It's so frustrating sometimes. The other thing that drives me crazy about doctors is how little they actually fucking know about the way the body works. Just the way like, I have met with doctors who don't know shit about diet. They don't know shit about what you're supposed to eat, about like potential allergies or anything like that. They don't know anything about it. Anything. Okay, to be fair, my doctor here, she's all right. She's all right. I like her because she didn't vaccinate her kid. She told her mom not to get vaccinated. And I don't know if she got vaccinated herself, right? Because she may have been forced to.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that she made her mother not do it, and the fact that she made her kid not do it, that's bonus points for me. Huge bonus points for me. But there's still times where, like, I had a time where I was having just mad stomach pains, like just like this flaming terrible feeling right in here. And I went to her and she was like, you gotta cut fat out of your diet. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Cut fat out of my diet? Are you kidding me? No, it has nothing to do with fat, lady. It has nothing to do with fat. First off, I don't. Go ahead.
So, what drives me nuts about doctors is that not knowing everything but thinking they do. So I have avoided doctors for most of my adult life, basically outside an injury. Like I don't go to a doctor. Like right now, I've been dealing with tendonitis in my elbow, and people are like, "Oh, have you gone to a doctor? Go like get some PT?" Like, no, I just drop the weight that I'm lifting in the gym. I'm resting when I can. I'm taking ibuprofen, and it's been getting better. I don't really feel a need to wrap a medical professional into this. But I talked about this before in the show. Last year, I fell down at work, tore through my ankle, and I spent a lot more time in a doctor's office than I have for the last 10 years. And, it was like, it was generalists and then specialists and orthopedists and all this fucking stuff. And so the injury happened. I got taken to urgent care. Urgent care, I see a doctor. They give me tramadol, which is an opioid.
Don't know anything about it.
to to treat my pain.
Mhm.
And so there's a whole opioid epidemic going on in the United States. It's like it's been in the news for years. The Purdue Pharmaceuticals just got ruled that even though they went bankrupt, they're still liable for the fines that have been posed against them.
Wow. Wish that
Yeah,
would work with Pfizer.
yeah, me too. So they put me on these opioids. I take them. They do nothing. And then I go to another doctor and I'm like, and I say, like, I can't sleep. I haven't slept in a week. Like the pain, I can sleep for about 45 minutes and then I literally wake up in the middle of the night screaming alone in my own home in pain because the pain is so completely overwhelming. I don't know what to do. Like I was laying in bed and I was just going like, just screaming. And I would scream for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I don't know if the screaming helped, but it would subside enough
It
that
might.
I could then kind of, it would go, it would like, I don't know what it was. There was like a weird cycling thing that was happening where it would just like, it would, and so then I could kind of doze off again and I would doze off and I had to sleep on my back and I'm not a back sleeper and all this like bitching and moaning about being injured. Because I had to sleep on my back to keep my foot elevated because that was supposed to help, and I had it wrapped in ice and all this stuff. But then, you know, a little while later, the pain would ramp up and it would wake me up, and I went to a doctor and I was like, "These pain medication is doing nothing. Like I've been taking it, it's not helping. It's not helping." And the second doctor I went to took a look at me and she goes, "It's not going to carry on the video," but she looks at me and goes, "I'm noticing a little bit of red there in your beard." And I'm like, yeah? What the fuck does that have to do with
Oh,
anything?
yeah, I know this. This
And
is
she goes,
yeah,
redheads have a natural immunity to pain medication.
Yep. Yep. You guys get
So
fucked up when you're
you
going on like a,
likely are one
yep.
of the 25% of people that opioids don't work on. Let me now ramp you all the way up to hardcore narcotics. So then I get put on hydrocodone, which I take for about a week. And it was great. The pain went away. The problem was when I woke up in the mornings, it was like being drunk. I
Mm.
couldn't walk, not because my ankle hurt. I couldn't like physically balance. And I would lay in bed and I laid in bed feeling like the bed was wobbling to and fro like I'm on a boat. And I would like stumble. I would get out of bed and I would crutch myself into the bathroom very unsteadily, bracing myself like between crutch. Imagine this, you know, crutches that you need your hands to work. I'm trying to balance between the crutches and also use my hands to balance against the wall and stand on one foot in order to get into the bathroom and I would do this thing where I would lean forward so that the crutches were up in my armpits. I had my left foot on the ground and I had my left hand on the windowsill and my right hand against the wall. 5 points of contact to feel
Goodness.
somewhat steady. And even then
Wow.
I felt very, just so I could take a piss. And then I would crutch back to bed where I would kind of flop into bed and then roll over. And then I would text and into work and be like, I can't come to work today. And it was like, "Oh, is the pain bad?" Like, "No, I
You're
can't get in my car and drive.
yeah,
I can't stand.
not
I can't
sober.
do anything." So I just
Yeah.
had to stop. I just had to stop taking all the medications they were giving me and just kind of grit through the next 6 weeks of my life.
That's the
And
thing.
it's like, surely there was somewhere in the middle between whatever hydrocodone you gave me and the opioids that didn't work. But I couldn't sit through enough of these fucking stupid conversations and go through all of these pills to try and get to a point where I could function as a human being because my ankle hurts.
That's the thing is like it doesn't feel like there's a plan. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel
Yeah,
like there's a plan. It just is like, okay, we're gonna you're complaining about this
you,
thing.
you're
Oh,
hurt. We give tramadol when people are hurt.
yeah.
You're gonna get the tramadol.
And then the cute 9 out of 10 rep is gonna get you that much closer to your, you know, like
Your
free
free cruise.
WrestleMania tickets. And so like
And
it's
again, like you said, I don't expect them to all be experts. I'm
no.
amazed that Doctor Number Two took one look at me and goes, "Oh, you've got a little bit of red in your beard. This must be the explanation." I don't expect Doctor Number One to know that, but I do expect there to be like and so at least now, and the thing is, oh, I really hope I'm never injured again. But the next time I go into a doctor with an injury and they're like, "We're going to give you tramadol," I'm going to say, "I'm one of 25% of humans that this shit doesn't work on. Do you see the red in the beard?" Like, I need something higher. I'm not chasing pain medication. Also, what I learned during all of this, because they put me on so many medications, and one of the things that I finally figured out is drowsiness as a side effect. Whatever the chemical is in medication that causes drowsiness does not work in my body.
Ah,
And so, you know, it's taken a lot of trial and error, but I'm going to, you know, but I also don't trust that when I go in and armed with this information and say like tramadol doesn't work on me, that they're not going to go, "Why don't you just try it?"
yeah, that's the thing, right? Like that is absolutely the thing. Dude, I've had times I'm allergic to penicillin, right? Like,
Yes.
it'll kill me. It will kill me. And like I've gone in and I always have to say to them, like, if you're going to give me some sort of an antibiotic, I'm allergic to penicillin. And I've had 2 times where all of a sudden I break out in hives and I'm like, the fuck is this? Is this penicillin? And they're like, well, it's like a cousin of penicillin. I'm like, then why didn't you get me as far away from penicillin as humanly possible? Because if you have something,
why don't we find the Montagues of
replace it
penicillin,
with,
please?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the other thing that drives me crazy about it is like this resignation. Like most doctors, they don't have time for you. They don't give a shit about you. They don't care about you. We don't have enough of them. The bar for entry is so high because of the cost. It's not just because of not having enough smart people. It's the cost of going through med school. And then on top of it, we're bringing in, like in Canada, it was like, oh, we got a doctor shortage. Let's bring in from Nigeria and let's bring in from India and let's bring in. It's like, okay, are we all on the same standard here? Is everything like the same?
Not
like,
at all. Not even close.
No. And so down here, like I had a guy and I liked this guy. He was one of my favorite doctors of all time. Good Christian guy. Like he had studied in the US. He practiced medicine in San Antonio for like a decade and he prayed on it and was like, I got to get the hell out of the United States. I'm like, yeah, you're my kind of guy. This was my guy. I love this guy. He was great. I was happy when I got back to Paraguay to go back to him because his bedside, this was the kind of doctor who would give you a solid half hour with him to go through everything. Like he was thorough. He was great. But COVID happened. And then when I came back to him, I lost all respect for him because the guy would wear a mask and then a plastic shield and gloves. And I'm like, bro, it's 2022. Like we know better by this point. Like, what are you doing?
Guy in the gym this week or last week? This week. No, it was since I got back to St. Louis. In the gym, full mask. And I was just like, it's 2024, man. You gotta take a deep breath and let this shit go.
It's
and also so, you around some of the healthiest people you'll be around. Nobody in the gym is coming here with the China virus to put it in your body.
I would be blatantly honest with any doctor I met with. I'm like, look, I ain't getting the jab. Like it's just not happening. Right. And I would debate with them. I love to debate. I debate with them. Dude, my sleep apnea, my sleep doctor, he gave me 2 options. I either get a CPAP machine or I get this crazy invasive surgery where you're breaking my jaw and reforming everything, and I would look like a different person and sound like a different person. I was like, I'll take the CPAP.
Yeah,
I'll take the CPAP. But at that time, I remember I was telling him, I'm like, I'm moving back to Paraguay. We got to get this all done. And I forget how it came up, but it came up in I was like, I'm not getting the jab. He's like, so offended. He was so offended that I wasn't getting the jab. You're a sleep doctor. Chill the fuck out. And then we got into a debate, and it was like I was talking about ivermectin, and I was talking about hydroxychloroquine, and I was talking about the other things that were available to us. The other thing is again, like, where the hell were the doctors when their lockdowns were happening, when they were closing down gyms and stuff? It's like, no, we need the gyms. We need to be able to go outside. We need that vitamin D. And, like you're not the last one, by the way. Nobody on this show.
I wouldn't say nobody on this show.
Nobody currently on this show.
Nobody on this episode.
On this episode, or the last one. So I would say this. So here's the thing. Like, I'm debating with this guy, and he's from the Philippines, of course. And he was like, if the ivermectin worked and it's so cheap, then all these third world countries would have been using it. I was like, well, they are.
They are.
He's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, yes,
yeah, they
are.
It's a miracle drug. It cures so
absolutely are. And he's like, where's the study on that? I'm like, New England Journal of Medicine, New England
boop.
Journal of Medicine. He's like, that's not like, you need to give me a reputable source. I'm like,
The New England Journal
of
not a
Medicine is
reputable
not a
source.
reputable. He's like, you need more sources. I'm like, dude, you're my sleep doctor. You asked me for a reputable source. Here's one where ivermectin works from the New England Journal of Medicine. What do you want from me? And it's just this arrogance because nobody challenges the doctor. Nobody tells the doctor you don't know shit and you're making this stuff up as you go along. You're just clickety clack into your thing, and you have a formula in your head and you go bam, that's your thing. But it's like, if you guys really cared about COVID and you really cared about people's health, where the fuck were you saying go get as much vitamin D as you can? Just go get as much vitamin D as you can. Let's start eating right. Let's lose some weight. Let's work on this. No, you're just too quick to shove those pain medications on us or antibiotics on us and all this kind of stuff. Like, this is why I'm like, oh, fuck doctors. You know what I mean? Like, this is, I've gone real long on this one, but man, oh man.
I want to come at this from one other angle real quick before we wrap up. And so you've been talking a lot about medical doctors, and I would like to specifically say, fuck non-medical doctors.
You mean Dr. Joe Biden?
Yeah, they want you to call them doctor and pretend like they're doctor, and they're
like
not.
Chiropractors?
No, not just that, like a doctorate in English or a doctorate in fucking dramaturgy or something.
Or even worse, even the very, very worst, an honorary doctorate.
Honorary doctorates are not even worth mentioning. So I work with a doctor. My glass-blowing partner is a doctor, has a PhD in microbiology and shit.
Do they insist on being called Dr. So-and-so?
Not at all. Not even. In fact, we have been working together for a little over a year. We met June 13th. And only in like the last month or so did because I was pretty sure this person had a doctorate, but I wasn't positive. I wasn't, because it's never like come up in conversation. I know what they do for a job. They know what I do for a job. Like, but I was like, I'm pretty sure you have a PhD, but it's never like come up in conversation because it's a doctorate in microbiology, not a doctorate in medicine.
Right.
And so finally, like, it came up a conversation, and I was like, yes, okay, you are technically a doctor, but not, but you're not a pretentious asshole. Truckin' and Tuckin', Tim and I went to high school. Our class sponsor, the teacher that oversaw our class, was a doctor and required us to refer to him as doctor in his last name, which I absolutely refused to do after I heard this anecdote of him talking to another teacher at school who was referred to as doctor, whatever that teacher was. And he asked that teacher why everyone called him doctor. And the guy's like, because I went and got a doctorate. And then the next year, our class sponsor shows up and suddenly he's doctor in his name. And I was like, oh, he's not actually a doctor. He just made that up so that we would all call him that. And I fucking hate that shit because, there's the classic meme of in theater, someone has a heart attack or something. And is there a doctor in the house? And someone's like, I have a doctorate in philosophy. Yeah, no one was fucking talking to you, man. What do you mean?
I have a tag-on point to that. So at one point in time, I was engaged to a different woman, not my wife. This was prior. This is when I was 21
Does this woman
years
know
old.
about your wife now?
No, my wife knows all about us. I lucked out because I never married this lady. But I remember because we were going to the university together. I actually switched universities just to go to the same university as this chick. And she was studying to be a veterinarian. But like to become a veterinarian in Canada is ridiculously hard. Like they're cutthroat with each other because like only the top like 2 people from like the school get admitted into the big veterinary school in Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. And so like it was always talking about how she was going to be a vet. blah 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 blah. It was her dream. She was yeah, all this kind of stuff. But I remember she had this one friend when she found out we were getting married, like we were engaged. One of the first things, I think it was the first time we were meeting with this lady, and she's like, "You're not going to change your name, are you?" Right? She's like, "She's not going to change your name. You don't want to give them a doctor." That's how she put it. She's like, "You don't want to give their family
the
a
Chaco
doctor.
family to have a doctor because
You don't want to
married
give
him."
them a doctor." It's like I remember when I was looking up. You remember like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and like Bill S. Preston Esquire. And I remember I
Yeah.
looked up like what is it Esquire, and apparently
Lawyer.
that's actually like tacked on to lawyers.
Yeah.
Right. So it's tacked on to lawyers, but they never use it. They don't use it. They don't ask to be called like you.
That's the joke in Better Call Saul is that he's James McGill Esquire. In the early season, it's a joke because you would never ask to be called that.
No.
Yeah.
It's the only profession that does it. It's the only profession that does it. It's the only level of education that does it. Like a professional plumber. A professional plumber doesn't do it. You'll occasionally see it on like a byline or like a bio of an engineer. It might say P-Eng or something like that, but that's about it. You might see somebody who's like an accountant. It might say CPA or CA or something like that. But like they don't ask you to be called Accountant Smith. They don't ask to be called.
It would be like putting International
Engineer
Glass
Jones
Artist underneath your tagline because you have pieces in 2 countries. Other than
even if you got a doctorate in engineering, you don't generally ask to be called doctor, right? Yeah. So like, it's just such an obnoxious. Screw doctors. Screw them. So that's my issue.
It's a great issue. Well, that means it's the middle of our episode, and it's time for.
Gotta wait for that music to end. That's awesome.
So this one is this. Oh, this is the one you sent me, and you're like, "Don't use this one." Let me open this back up. A Baltimore area teacher is accused of using AI to make his boss appear racist, which sounds brilliant. A Maryland high school athletic director is facing criminal charges after police say he used artificial intelligence to duplicate the voice of Pikesville High School principal Eric Eiswert, leading the community to believe Eiswert said racist and anti-Semitic things about teachers and students. We now have conclusive evidence that the recording was not authentic. Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough told reporters during the news conference Thursday. It has been determined that the recording was generated through the use of artificial intelligence technology.
Anti-Semitic comments. Oh, what you doing, Rabbi? Oh no.
DeZone Darien, 31, was arrested Thursday on charges of stalking, theft, disruption of school operations, and retaliation against a witness after a months-long investigation from the Baltimore County Police Department. Attempts to contact Darien or Eiswert for comment were not successful. The wild headline-making details of this case aside, it emphasizes the serious potential for criminal misuse of artificial intelligence that experts have been warning about for some time, said Hanny Farid, a professor at the University of California. This fucking Baltimore article got a comment from someone in California.
AI alarm is a big problem.
Big problem. Voted up. Farad said he helped analyze the recording for police. This is why. They also consulted with other analysts and experts at the FBI. So I don't have this problem because I have this weird way of talking. Uncle Buck, a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, I don't remember. He like fed my voice into AI to get me to say some stuff, but I have this weird I speak in weird dynamics. So I go from like very loud to quiet and back and forth. So when you put it into an AI, it just comes out of this kind of like neutral, because I have a fairly neutral accent despite being from Oklahoma. So it just came out as being very neutral sounding and not actually sounding like myself.
It's funny how that works.
I'm immune to this.
There's I watch on YouTube, there's a few different types of. I range through basically this small little window of content. Like I watch Calgary Flames stuff, I watch wrestling stuff, and I watch like retro music stuff. And there's a couple of guys that I watch that are like old timer, like producer guys who like overanalyze music from back in the day, or they overanalyze music from now. And one of them, so one of the things that I found really interesting about this concept of AI music or AI singing, like I've heard some songs and like, yeah, they sound actually pretty like decent, like they sound professional, right? But this one guy is like, yeah, he was scared by it because he's like, this sounds like really tight and really good. But he would play it in his house, and his teenage children would comment to him, be like, Dad, why are you listening to AI crap? And he's like, how do you know it's AI? And they're like, can't you tell? Like they could tell by the voice.
Yeah.
You know those like deterrent systems that they like put in front of like a 7-Eleven
Yeah.
that like
The super
only
high
for
frequency. Yeah.
only for
18,000
a
hertz
person young
tones.
enough?
Yep.
I think there's something in the AI that they can hear that we can't. But it's interesting to because there was another guy who was analyzing it, and what he does is he does like he looks at like pitch correction and he looks at like auto tune type stuff. And what he's saying is that the reason why it sounds professional is because all the professional music has been tuned to be perfectly pitched
Mhm.
at every note for the singer. So he can actually see when the AI voice goes and it hits a thing and it tries to make it look normal, but it's not normal. And he could actually pick it off. So I'm impressed by the fact that in this story they were able to figure that out because I'm paranoid. So like I used to say to my kids, like, I don't want us talking into the Roku remote. I don't want you saying like blah 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 into the Roku remote
Oh, I say
because
only the most racist things into the Roku remote.
well, I
But
saw
only sorry, not only at my friend's house.
okay. I saw a really good meme the other day, and it was like, yeah, I actually saw it this morning. And it was basically like in the future, the only way you're going to be able to convince your friends that it's actually you and you're not AI is you're going to have to say the N word
Yeah.
because because you can't make AI say it, even if it was like the trolley problem and it's going to blow up the world. It's like, yeah, but we can't say the N word, So, so like I'm actually impressed by the fact that this guy was able to make the AI say anti-Semitic things because most of the AI will not say those kind of things. It won't say those words or anything like that. So I just think it's kind of
Must have found
funny.
like a weird beta that hadn't been programmed with the proper racial sensitivity codex.
Yeah, it's like so. Yeah, I do find it interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if AI could do my voice, but I do, especially when I'm talking on here. It's my show voice, so I do a lot of inflection or to
Yeah.
emphasize points. It'll change how I talk. I do the same when I'm Don Chaco in the ring. Like I've had times where people have said to me, like, if I'm cutting a promo, they're like, "No, cut. You got to do it again. You sound like Joel. You got to sound like Don Chaco." And I was like, "Oh, right, yeah, I got to do the Don Chaco voice." Like it's a totally different
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah, that's. I'm glad they caught the guy. Now, what I would hope for is throw the freaking book at him. Like
Oh.
throw the book at that asshole
No,
for
I'm
trying to do that.
100% against the boss. Fuck bosses, man.
What do you mean?
I just
I'd
don't
say the guy who
I
was
don't like
trying to
bosses.
set this guy up, who was trying to set this guy up. This guy should be, probably serving some time because you're trying to absolutely. That's calumny in the first degree. That is the textbook definition of calumny. You're trying to make it so that so and so said something they didn't say. That's
Well,
pretty evil.
you guys heard it here first. El Chaco is anti-labor, and he's on the side of management. Um, I've got a news story here. How straight do you think you are? Are you a super straight?
I'm
You
a
think
super straight.
super straight?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you ever been fined for being straight?
I have not been fined for being straight, and I don't think it'll happen to me here.
Well, French cyclist Julien Bernard has been fined $223 200 Swiss francs by the International Cycling Union for stopping during stage 7 of the Tour de France and kissing his wife, because cyclists, they don't like straight people in there. Of course, on being
Well,
that
yeah,
all cyclists
it's not
are
a
huge
straight
faggots.
sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The governing body said the fine was for unseemly or inappropriate behavior during the race and damage to the image of the sport. The fact that
Ooh.
this guy gave his wife a peck.
Ah, man,
So he's in stage 7. He all these people rush out as he finishes the stage. His wife is there. He gives her a little kiss on the cheek. We've all done it. Your
dude,
girlfriend,
if you're
your wife.
celebrating, come
Yeah.
on. Come on.
Unseemly conduct. And the only conclusion I can make is that cyclists,
Straight.
being huge faggots, are completely unwilling to see a man give a woman a completely sexless kiss on the race course.
I recommended a show to you. Welcome to Wrexham.
Yes, I have not watched it yet.
The show about Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney buying a football team in Wales, right?
Mhm.
Now, the show is pretty good, but just like any show made in 2022 to 2024, it's going to have its injection for modern audiences.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you brought up about an athlete getting fined for being straight. That'll probably happen to Caitlin Clark any day now, because she's super popular in the WNBA and is straight and is being bullied by all the dykes in the in the league. But
yeah.
we're watching this Welcome to Wrexham, and now I had to cover women's soccer when I was in university. I had to cover. Well, soccer was my beat. And so I had to do the men's games and I had to do the women's games. And the women's games, generally speaking, if you were covering these university sports, and let's say you wanted to maybe, flirt with one of the team players in a bar or something like that, you don't bother with the hockey team or the soccer team because it's just all lesbians. Mm-hmm. Right. And maybe not the basketball team either. But the volleyball team, that's green light. But we're watching this Wrexham show, and they, of course, had to start focusing because there's two teams that they bought. They bought the men's team, and there's always a women's team that goes along with it. And in pure in women's sports ways, of course, they have no humility. The top player is a lesbian. And she, when they're saying oh, you're the Paul Mullen of the women's team, right? And because he's the superstar that they brought in, and she's like, no, Paul Mullen is the male
of the male team.
Oh. Yeah. And when they're making the show, right, they're not over the top about her being lesbian. They never show her with her partner or anything like that, except for one shot that they chose to do, which was after they won a game, she runs over to the crowd and kisses her girlfriend or whatever. And I'm saying to my wife, I'm like, the editors, when you're choosing what to put into the show and what not to put into the show, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They're being subtle about it. It's cool. I guess, do your thing. You're not beating us over the head with it, but you still are. So I can sort of see if I'm going to be equal on my to that versus this super straight cyclist, I guess if there was as long as there's no double standard, but in this case there is a double standard because this woman was able to run over and kiss her girlfriend with no problems, throw it on the show, throw it in the episode, whereas this, oh, it's super inappropriate. You were done the race and you kissed your wife. You're
a race that was gamed by the American Lance Armstrong many years ago.
Oh, I like this.
I've got a couple more news stories here. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, I used to love riding a bike around, Maddox. But the whole cycling culture, super gay.
Oh, it's the worst. So this one comes from my home state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is based as fuck. They've got AI vending machines that are selling bullets. So there's a
What?
lot. This article is really poorly written in that it's really condemning bullets existing, and
I got a
basically
bunch
these.
of 22 bullets if they need
It's
to restock it.
it's not AI. It's the same technology that every bar in America has these days. So, American driver's license now have a barcode on them, right? And they scan it, and it gives them a lot of information about you, mostly your birth date and other things. So
You mean like the
these
front
these
of your
guys in
driver's license
Oklahoma and
does?
Alabama have made vending machines that will sell ammunition. You scan your driver's license. If it comes back clean, it'll sell you a box of ammo. Basically, the same way you'd buy like a bag of chips or a Dr. Pepper.
That
Um,
sounds so Second Amendment-y.
yeah, it's super Second Amendment-y, and this article is all about like how there are more guns than there are people in the United States. But it sounds badass as shit. The fact that you can just like walk up to a thing, scan your ID, swipe your card, get a box of ammo for your gun. I love it. I fucking love
Yeah.
it. It's no different. It's no different than buying them in stores because in stores they scan your shit too.
I wish you didn't have to use your ID to buy it.
I don't think you should have to use your ID. They're bullets. You have to go through a background check to get the gun. Anybody should be able to buy whatever ammunition they want, but you have to be 18 to buy rifle ammunition in the United States. You have to be 21 to buy handgun ammunition in the States. Same with buying the weapons themselves.
And they're probably
And
ridiculously expensive these days too, right?
ammunition, ammunition is fucking insane these days.
It's crazy everywhere. It's crazy
Before
everywhere.
the pandemic, it was 7 cents a round for brass casing ammunition for my 9mm. Now it's like 12 cents a round for steel, which I can't even shoot at most ranges.
Dude, I'm paying $1 a shell for my 12 gauge.
Oh yeah, my 12 gauge is about no, I think it's let's see, it was 100. It was maybe it was $1 a shell. I think it was like 100. It might have been $90 for 100 shells.
Satisfying, satisfying dollar though every time I shoot it. But
Oh fuck yeah.
I love that
I have one last news story here. This is a great example of why you can never trust the government and the government will never give you anything. Vernon Reffitt got $30,000 to leave the Army in 1992. It was a one-time lump sum special separation benefit offered to service members when the U.S. had to reduce its active duty force. Now, if you're a big fan of the Jack Reacher novel series, you'll know that this reduction in force is what inspires the original book Killing Floor and why Jack Reacher in the novels leaves the Army. 30 years later, the federal government wants that money back. In May, the Department of Veterans Affairs began withholding monthly disability compensation payments that Reffitt had been receiving for 3 decades until he repays the $30,000. It would take the 62-year-old nearly 15 years to do so. Thousands have found themselves in Reffitt's position due to a little-known law that prohibits veterans from receiving both disability and special separation pay under the law. The VA has to recoup special separation benefits from veterans before those eligible can begin receiving disability payments. It has forced at least 79,000 veterans to repay different types of separation benefits between 2013 and 2020, according to a study published in 2022 by the RAND Corporation, which I thought was a corporation in Marvel, but I guess it's a real one, a nonprofit research group. The actual number of affected veterans is likely much higher because researchers were not able to access data prior to 2013 due to VA system changes. This is so beyond disgusting. Like I'm not one of those like thank you for your service conservatives.
Yeah, but the way they treat these guys is
take
absolutely disgusting.
It's been 30 years. You gave him 30 grand to leave. He didn't want to leave. He took the money to leave. And now you want to he's 62 years old. Just give him his fucking Social Security and disability and just fucking write it off. You guys write off so many other stupid bullshit things. We're spending so much fucking money on dipshit things. Just fucking let our veterans have their lives. Please. For the love of all that is good. You absolute sons of bitches.
Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Man, like we have this term, that they always say, oh, like the right is always complaining about death panels, right? Like when we're going to decide who gets to live or who gets to die in the Canadian healthcare system. But it's a thing, man, because the way that they calculate what your life is worth, like the way that they calculate, like if you took all the healthcare dollars, all the national defense dollars, and then divided that by like the population, you could pretty much see what the government believes the
A human life
value
is
of a
worth.
human life is, right? And so when you see stuff like this, it's like, who's the satanic accountant that
Yeah.
noticed this thing and was like, we gotta clamp this down? Because that guaranteed it's a total pussy who, as soon as he's
Who has
confronted,
never done anything to help another man
never.
in his community, let alone his country.
Yep. Almost worse
And
than doctors.
and it's reprehensible.
Yeah, that's
The money's
disgusting.
lost. Just let it go. Just do right by these people. They did right by us. We should do right by them.
Mhm.
No questions asked.
None.
Does not matter. Spared no expense. Just fucking take care of them. Is that and there is nobody like I jokingly have this stance where I'm pro breast cancer because no one will ever be like, I'm pro breast cancer. And corporations, they do these big fundraisers and stuff, and
The whole
they
thing of
like,
like awareness. It's like,
yeah, they
we're
stand proud of
aware.
being like, we support Susan G. Komen, Race to the Cure. Like,
The
yeah, of
worst
course
of the
you do.
worst, by the way.
How could you fucking stand against them?
Because they're
Nobody,
awful.
nobody. Well, yeah, that's part of why I
Yeah.
came to this. Like, it was an absurdist take I took one time, but I'm standing by it now.
They're litigious.
No one is ever going to be upset that we spent an extra $1 billion in our budget to take care of our veterans. Not one fucking
No.
person, not one
No.
fucking politician
But
can get up there on a statue, on a platform and a pedestal and be like, yes, I don't believe our veterans deserve healthcare service, because they will never get elected for the rest of their lives.
yet at the same time, they're sending what? How much have you guys sent to Ukraine? Like,
So much money. So much money.
You've sent more to
50
Ukraine than like the GDP of Canada.
Yeah, we sent more to Ukraine than we send to Israel, which is a lot of fucking money.
40 billion a year to Israel.
Yeah,
40 billion a year.
I think we sent in the trillions now to the Ukraine. And it's just like, you know what? That money at home, I would much rather have that money. Look, don't get me wrong. You don't want to support the veterans, that's fine. Stop charging me taxes.
Yeah.
Fuck them. You're not going to charge me taxes? Fuck them. I don't give a shit. But as long as you're stealing money from me in the form of taxes,
well, then you could donate to
take
them.
care of them.
You could donate to them at that point in time. You
I
could
might.
probably do a lot better than the government's doing.
Yeah, I'm so pissed off by this news story. It's so just like picking at the bones of our country.
Once you
pisses
realize,
me off.
The government hates you and wants you dead, then it all starts to make sense. It just does. Like, it's like they want that veteran dead because they don't want to have to deal with them. It's an administrative cost that they don't want to deal with.
Of course.
And so it's like you brought up about Office Space before the show. It's like that whole thing about what they did to the one guy. They're like, yeah, well, there was a glitch in the system and he kept getting his check. And so we just
fixed the glitch.
Fixed the glitch.
Yeah. We're not going to tell him he's fired.
So that's what they're doing with this veteran. They're like, well, we fixed the glitch.
Yeah. Anyway, well, this has been News Now 69, our brand new news segment. There's no way attached to anyone and not a reflection of our opinions. News Now 69. It'll probably change next week too.
I'm hoping that people can come up with some sort of, their own take on it at some point.
Yeah. And that brings us to that takes care of our news segment for the week. But you know what doesn't take care of?
Our veterans.
And saying thank you to our generous contributors throughout the years, the people that are still listening. HWIDG is brought to you in part through generous contribution from viewers like you. Thank you. Just like PBS, except less beta mail. Yeah, so thank you to everyone who stayed listening for all these years, 7+ years of shows. I've been listening to old shows. I'm honestly
stop doing that. It's bad for your health.
I am going to top my giant water container off.
I'm going to go do that too. Let's take a just a
We're going
second
to take a
ago.
real quick break for you YouTube watchers. It'll be edited out in the regular show, but we'll be back in just a moment. Hit that like button, subscribe, and all the stupid YouTuber bullshit.
All right, chat. Now's your chance. You can talk shit about Tab while he's gone if you want, or don't. You could compliment him for his fine glasswork. Mine's empty, but. Hey, can somebody in the chat check the score in the Argentina-Canada game for me? Yeah, hit the like button. Do that. Show will be at war with who are these podcasts. I don't have the admin to drag any of the comments over, so none of them is going to get on the screen until afterwards. 2-0, but is Argentina up? Is it Argentina up? Because I called 3-0 Argentina. I'm actually rooting against Canada. I called 3-0, so if they get 3-0, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I knew it. I knew they would be up. Canada sucks. You know what I don't like about the Canadian soccer team is that they bought into the whole like they didn't play a friendly because they were in solidarity with the women's team, what they believe should be getting paid equally, even though they're like, couldn't fill a stadium if their lives depended on it. Hate that crap. I'm pro Argentina. I'm pro Argentina. I got to see Messi play once. Back in the day, I saw him for like $8 in a World Cup qualifier match between Argentina and Paraguay, and they kicked the crap out of Paraguay. And I saw Messi score 2 goals. It was awesome. I mean, I was cheering for Paraguay, but you get to see like one of the greatest players of all time score a couple of goals right in front of you. It was pretty cool. I don't even know any of the players on the Canadian team other than like Davies, because, well, again, he's kind of the most political, so you hear about his takes on things, which I don't always agree with. So, thanks for getting me the score, guys. Thanks for getting me the score. I appreciate it. Yeah, Canada has that truckers issue thing. Yeah, that didn't go so. I mean, it went well, sort of. So yeah, honk honk. I got the chat to help me out by getting the score in the soccer game.
Nice.
Yeah, they helped me out. They were kind of not helpful at first though, because it just said 2-0. It's like, well, I don't know who's the 2 and who's the nothing, but I did know who the 2 was, and it was definitely going to be Argentina because Canada is not winning this game. Mm-hmm. No way. And I don't want to
know anything about soccer outside of Ted Lasso.
You know what's weird is like here in Paraguay, I got people asking me what I thought about the game. I'm like, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I don't have cable. I paid for Sportsnet in Canada just so I could watch the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and I'm going to cancel that before I forget.
Yeah.
Should we clap? Is this like when you should be editing?
No, I'll look at the gap on my track.
Well, I chatted throughout most of it, so that's probably not the best.
I've been drinking water. Well, for like the last 6 months now, I've been drinking water out of this like old Oktoberfest mug
Oh
around the
yeah.
house, and this is like 30 or 40 ounces.
So you're gonna
And
have to pee soon too.
well, no, I did. I peed because
Oh.
I had one of these with dinner, and then
Mhm.
because I've been stuffed up, I'm gonna try and like get that mucus to clear out, and so I
Are you
had
guys
one
getting
with
sick
dinner.
up there right now? Like, is everybody getting sick? It's like July and everybody's getting sick, right?
It's just pollen.
Uh,
Yeah, and so then I had one sitting here during the episode, and I was like, I really have to pee.
I'm actually thinking that what I had was actually probably like the newest version of COVID
Ooh.
because like it was a painful cough. Like I felt like my ribs were broken. And then the next day I felt like I had knives in my stomach. And I told you already, like, it changed my like taste for like a while. I can smoke cigars again. That's a good thing. I'm happy about that. But I I had this weird thing in the mall. We were walking around, and all of a sudden, I had like my toes felt like they were like on fire. They just like felt like ants had climbed into my shoes, but just the tips of my toes. And so I was like in the mall, and I was like, okay, well, maybe it's like I don't know, maybe it's an athlete's foot. Maybe I'll go get some like foot powder or something like that. But it wasn't. And then I look it up, and I just saw a news story on it, and they call it COVID toe. And it's like your toe goes like a
I
different
heard about
color.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And so like I think we got COVID, which is great because that more natural immunity for me.
4 years, still totally China virus free.
Oh,
No, it's
yeah.
funny. I talked about it. I'm editing all of this out of the show
Oh, of
now.
course, of course.
Uh,
The live audience watch.
the
You're
live
getting
audience
bonus
gets
content right
behind the
here.
scene. Yeah, so I mentioned I've been seeing this gal, and so she went on vacation right before 4th of July, and then she like got back, and she was back for like a day, and then I left town, and then when I got back, she was very sick for like the last few days, and kind of the same thing, like coughing, fever, all this stuff, and I was just like, I don't know what that's like because I just don't get sick. I'm immune to
Normally,
it.
I don't either. I just this was a weird one, man. It leveled us. Like it kicked our asses. But
I
s-
I so Merlot Williams said I've actually gone back and started HOBIG from the beginning. I didn't start listening until the end of Chaco's first run. It's wild how the show has evolved over the years. I'm actually doing the same thing. I just started the short sleeve Samson episode
oh, that's a good one.
on my way
He was
home.
good on that one. Yeah, I like that one. That was a good episode.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say okay, that was probably in my top three.
Hmm.
I would say I really like the Razor Fist episode. Um, I also like the Mad Cucks episode a lot. Like
I'm a big fan of the Mad Cooks episode. That guy
yeah.
is so funny.
Oh, just like the funniest guy.
It's embarrassing to listen to because there are so many subsequent episodes where everyone's like, "Oh, Mad Cooks was great on the show," but wasn't that guy great? He was so great, and I'm just like, "Oh, can only you did so much."
We did like that. We did like that episode, and that was a big boost for us too at the time because it did
It was
bring
a
over
good
Dick Show
episode, man.
viewers. So.
I remember doing that. I did that episode from the lighting booth of one of the theaters I worked in.
Yeah, I remember you telling us when you got it set up.
And and then the next I don't remember. I have to I haven't gotten to the second Mad Cooks episode, and when I get to it, I'm sure I'll remember where I was at the time because I have to hear it to picture it in my head where I was.
Yeah, it's it, I know where I was. We were staying at my parents' house or something. I recorded that one. Uh, recorded that one at my parents' house. I don't. Why were we there? That's weird. Yeah, because I should have been normally doing it in my. I normally would do the show in my basement office. But yeah, I forgot about that. My first episode was the one where they talked about the Jeopardy host debacle. That
I
was
think
recent.
that's a modern one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You got a lot of back episodes to go through, I guess.
Last question was Ryan. No, Mad Cooks reviewed Breath of the Wild like last year. I gotta go look that up. Anyway, all right, let's get back into the show for real. For real, this is what's going out to the feed. Here's what I don't get: an ill fit. Now, most people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, here's Tab talking about how much weight he's lost again. Because he's so vain. He's that song that Carly Simon wrote is actually about Tab.
It's Tab Bird, yeah.
And I did do a costume change for the live stream. I'm wearing this shirt. This was a custom tailored shirt a few years ago. And if you're watching live, you can see that there is like a fist's worth of neck hole that I am not filling anymore, and the wrists. Look at those.
Look at you. Man. You could have like a giant Rolex under there, and nobody would know.
Could. Like I have lost a tremendous amount of weight, and if I were to stand up and like pull this shirt away from my body, you'd see that there is just a tremendous amount of excess fit fabric. And while it is great that 99% of my wardrobe has been purchased since March 1st of this year. When I talk about an ill fit, I've
bought some of that wardrobe for you.
That is actually a true story. I like the stuff that's left over is stuff that I'm either unwilling to part with, like my high trust low context t-shirt that I bought in an XL when I wore an XL.
Oh, you don't wear an XL no more.
I don't wear an XL anymore. Yeah. And or things of a sentimental value like that over the years.
That's going to be a collector's item when the show wraps up at like episode 20.
No, I kind of mean, I mean this in a much more philosophical way.
Okay.
So it's been, I'm not yet able to fully talk about it, but it's been a rough year. It's been a rough 9 months since my injury, since everything going on. And, so let's go back. When I started the show in 2016, 2017, when I joined the show, we did the hat and shades thing. And, the first question.
And nobody's doing that no more.
Yeah. The first question that you or Buck asked me was like, do you have a hat and shades? And I don't remember which one. And I was like, yeah, I have this hat that I wear every day and I wear Ray-Bans all the time. So that's what I wore. And that was the photo on the show. On the thumbnails was, this picture of me in this hat that I actually have right here. It wasn't that I was wearing this hat for the show. Like I wore this hat every day through middle school. I bought it in 2007. In the fall of 2007, I bought it at Target because my hat, which was this light green linen hat, disappeared, and I needed a new hat. I was very attached to the flat cap. I wore them all the time. So I went to Target one night on my way home, and I bought this hat, and it's like this faux suede, and I've had it ever since. I've had it for, what is that? 17 years now. And
give or take a couple.
I mean, it's 17 years, 2007 to 2024. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pert near.
Okay, so yeah.
And I wore it. I wore it every day. I wore it all through high school. I wore it through college. I wore it getting out of college. And at some point in like 2018 or 2019, I decided to stop wearing it all the time. I would still wear it sometimes, but I was trying to be a little bit more presentable. I was trying to be more professional. I was really getting into my career, and I just stopped wearing it all the time. But I kept it around. Like obviously I still have it today. And so in 2022, when things started getting hard with my job, and I was kind of retreating inside myself, and I was angry and I was upset and I didn't know what to do. I put the hat back on and I started wearing it every day. And I didn't wear it every day for a while, for a long period of time, but I wore it every day for a few months towards the end of me quitting that job. And what I kind of realized was that the same way that I don't tie my shoes when I get depressed. It's a weird thing, but when I stop tying my shoes, I know that I have reached a problem in my life. I figured that out about 10 years ago. And now I wear shoes you don't have to tie, but I
But
know
you
the
could if
difference.
you wanted to.
I know the difference between me not tying those shoes, even though they don't tie, and tying my shoes. And they're like,
Mhm.
there are days where I'm just like, because they have this lacing system, and I can just slip them on and I can wear them and they're fine. And some days it's just like, I just don't want to fucking cinch that shit up. Like I can kind of function this way. But then there's a difference between me like doing that because I don't want to tighten up the lacing system, and the difference between me choosing not to tie my shoes anymore. Um, but one of the signs is like not tying my shoes, and then anyway, so I was wearing this hat, and things have been hard. Things have been real hard for the last few months, and I don't know. A couple weeks ago, I was like, things are hard. Maybe I should start wearing the hat again. Maybe that'll like make me feel better. So I took it off the hat rack and I put it on. It just didn't feel right, man.
Hmm.
Like I know I know that I'm dealing with things. I know that I'm having a problem. And I know that I need to find comfort in something, but this just isn't it. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if maybe that means I'm growing as a person. I don't know if that means, but it's just like it doesn't it doesn't fit the same way anymore. The way it used to. The way it used to be this like piece of comfort. And I still love my hat despite it being this inanimate object. Um I but it's not I don't need it.
It's not what you need at this point
Yeah.
it's not serving the purpose that you were intending for it.
Yeah.
That's what
And
yeah.
so last week I was back in Tulsa, and so there's a bar. I've talked about it many times, Hotel Indigo in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Has a rooftop bar called Rooftop 66. It was one of my favorite places. I mean, it was my bar. It was like I was a regular, everyone knew me. I could walk in there and I got the best service because I took care of the bartenders and they took care of me and I was friends with them. And then the pandemic happened and not all the bartenders came back, and then finally, like the last bartender that I knew was gone. And I went in, there were no bartenders that I knew anymore. I talked to the guy on duty and he was like, "Yeah, we fired this person." And I was like, "All right, cool. I'm gonna tab out." And I left, and I didn't go back for months when living in Tulsa, and now 2 years of living in St. Louis. I was like, I wanted to see the skyline and I wanted to visit my old bar and I wanted to like do the thing when I was back there in town. And so I bullied Truckin' and Tuckin' and Tim into joining me at this bar. And we're standing, I'm standing out there. I'm looking at uh, looking at the skyline of Tulsa. And I was just like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. It's not a good fit. Tulsa's not a good fit. So I haven't talked about this on the show because the show didn't exist at the time or wasn't happening at the time. But back in March, I traveled to Seattle for a conference for a theater conference, and while I was there, by pure happenstance, I soft interviewed for a position with a production company back in Tulsa, of all places, and a position that I was uniquely qualified for. And at first it was kind of this quick thing that just happened. I didn't know where it was going. Uh, but I kind of agreed to do the interview, and then I agreed that I did kind of want the position. And then I got back to St. Louis and I started thinking about it. And I didn't I didn't want the position. What I wanted was to not be here because St. Louis is not the
Not
right
a
fit.
fit.
But Tulsa is a worse fit.
Is this your Norway announcement?
This is not my Norway announcement.
Okay. All right.
I kind of went through that whole process, and the great irony, the great like joke is I had decided, I had pretty much come to the conclusion that I didn't want the job. And then I got rejected for it. because I didn't have enough technical experience. I've been
What?
working in theater professionally for 17 years. I've been working in it since, as a student for 20 years. I've been doing this my whole fucking life. And I was turned down because I didn't have enough technical experience.
What's enough? Did they need
Uh,
like 30 years?
I
Like
don't know, but
only hiring
it
boomers?
was
Like,
astounding. It cracked me up to hear that. And yeah, so like I've struggled. I've been struggling for the last 2 years with where is home. Um, one of the things, I took this job, and if you go back and listen to those episodes, like I had such a hard time finding a place to live out here. And one of the things was I went back to Tulsa for 4th of July, and I had been living with my dad, and the room that I had been staying in had been reallocated. And I'm not upset about that. It went to my sister, which is absolutely where it should have been to begin with. But there was like a moment there where I was like, "Oh, I'm officially homeless. Like I don't have a place to live in St. Louis. I don't have a place to live in Tulsa. I'm a man without a country."
mm,
And then I found this home. Tomorrow will be 2 years that I've lived in this house, and it's the longest I've lived in a single location in my entire adult life. Which is also wild. And there are definitely days where I'm like, St. Louis is my home. But there are a lot of days where St. Louis is not my home. And all
I
I can ascribe that to is that it's just not the right fit. Tulsa is not the right fit. I can't go back there. Not that I could go back there. I don't want to go back there. I don't. It's a backward step. To go back to Tulsa to take that job would have been a
right.
backward step. It would be to go back to a place where I was miserable. And I have to hope that there is a horizon, and I'm not miserable right now. Don't get me wrong, but I have to hope that there's a better, a first best destiny that lies outside of this city that shouldn't exist. And it's a it's a difficult um purgatory to live in.
Well, you're speaking to the you're preaching to the choir. Um, so I in my life have lived. I grew up in Calgary. With that, then I ended up moving to Edmonton and finished my university up there.
Alberta.
And then
Edmonton, Alberta.
I lived there for a while. I lived there for 4 years, and then I moved back to Calgary. And when I moved back to Calgary, it didn't feel right. I didn't, but I only went there because my family was there and I needed a place to live and I needed to find a job. And it was always in my back of my head. I was like, I'm going to find somewhere else to live. I got to get out of here. And then I ended up moving to Vancouver. I was dating a girl in Vancouver. I got fired from my job on the same day as my dad. It was really weird. We were working at the same place, and there's nothing worse than getting fired with your dad and knowing about it before your mom knows about it. Like that was like the weirdest elevator ride
Because you
ever.
guys are both working for the same.
Yeah, like we were working for the same company, and
I got one worse.
okay, but I took my payout. I remember my dad saying to me, he's like, because I got my like check, because they never even gave me a reason. They just said we're going in a different direction. The reason was because they were firing my dad.
Mhm.
And the reason they were firing my dad is because he's an ethical person and they wanted him to act unethically. So I was dating a girl in Vancouver at the time and I used to fly back and forth because it's cheap. And I could go to concerts in Vancouver. And whenever I go to Vancouver, I was like, it was that whole grass is always greener thing.
Mhm.
And literally greener because Vancouver gets a lot of rain. But I went out there and I remember when I was getting set up and I was like, I've been coming out here all the time. Every time that I came to Vancouver, it was like a happy place for me. Like I had a great, like I had a great time every time I went there. And I moved in with a guy that I met on a vacation and like a couple of roommates and just to keep the costs low. And I was supposed to try to write a book because one of the people I knew from university, was working in a publishing house, and she gave me an opportunity to write a treatment for a book. So I was like finally living the dream. I was like, I'm going to write a book. Um, and I remember when I moved there and all of a sudden everything was different. Like I remember because I had to figure out the city. You know, when you move to a new city, you got to like figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like pre-smartphones and just having the internet on you at all time. So I remember because one of the things that I loved about Vancouver is a very cold place personally, whereas Calgary is a very, very warm place personally. Like it's very common to smile and wave and say hello when you're walking and a complete stranger is passing you in Calgary, but in Vancouver, not at all. And I used to go out there and think to myself, I love Vancouver because a person like me, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Like if I went to like a bar or something like that, like the women weren't used to having anybody chat them up. And so it was like way easier. So I lived there. I lived in Vancouver. I moved there in 2007 and I met my wife in 2008 and we moved to Paraguay. We decided to move to Paraguay at the end of 2012 because I was like, I realized I was like, I like this city. I don't like the people,
Yeah.
and I need to get out of here. And so I had a job offer in Paraguay. I went to go and check it out. The job was nothing. But I was like, you know what? We've already done all this research. Let's go down here anyway. So we moved down to Paraguay, and I actually loved it for the first time.
My parents were. This is my home.
Sorry, I thought I had that muted and not playing.
So I went there, and I loved it, but my wife, like it started to wear on her for a while, and then by the end, I was like really getting worn out by like the cultural differences. So we went back to Canada. And I remember because I said to my wife, I'm like, I screwed up with the wrestling thing. So what we did is I gave her the veto on where we would go because it was basically, do we go to Vancouver, where your family is, or do we go to Calgary, where my family is? And we ended up going to Vancouver because that's where her last job was. So we went there. And I remember it was like all of our friends were still there and nothing felt right. Like it just felt, I don't think I've ever been as depressed as I was when I got back to Vancouver. And we weren't there very long because I actually had to say to my wife, like, because she was really pregnant with our daughter. And I said to her, I was like, I can't stay here. I'm going to die here. Like, this is the worst fit ever. I hated living in Vancouver. And so I was glad I went there because I at least got to like reconnect with like clients and stuff. But when my mom came to me and said, there's a place in Calgary for rent, it was like a house, and it was like 5 minutes from my parents' place. And it was like just one community over from where I grew up. It felt like the right place. So we went there, and I was like, oh, I'll run into like old high school people and university people, and like we'll get back into it. And like I can, and my kids can go into the sports leagues that I played in and play for the same sports teams that I played in. Unfortunately, my kids don't like sports. But I remember actually I said to my wife at a certain point, I'm like, why are we not making friends? Like, this is just not, it's so weird. Calgary is usually warm, but Calgary had changed big time. And I remember we would go to like Sylvan Lake, which is like between Calgary and Edmonton. It's like this like easy place to go on a weekend and go swim and hang out on a beach. And I remember I went there and the demographics were completely changed. It was like I was at the United Nations. It was totally different. The vibe was completely different. And I was miserable with that. I thought it was terrible. So, like we kind of settled in, and our last house in Calgary was great. I loved my place in Calgary, but when it was time to go, we had to go. And so, like I went to this idea of like, we should go back to Paraguay. And to be fair, like I love my home here. Like whenever we're gone, I just want to be back home. I don't know if that's me being older and like a bit of a hermit, but I just want to be here. but there's something missing. And it really hit me when my mom just came and visited, because before she came and visited, I was so excited to see her. I hadn't seen her in like 2 years. And so when she came, it was instantly like perfect. And it was great to have her here. But my dad's not here because he can't make that trip. It's too long. So I got to go back to Canada at some point in time. Long story short, I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that there is no perfect fit, and that there is no, my porridge is too hot, my porridge is too cold, my porridge is just right. There isn't ever going to be one, because when we think about like, well, if we had to move back to Canada, it's like, no, Canada's a shithole. And I'm saying that from Paraguay.
Yeah.
And like, it's, I can't go back there. I hate the idea. When I left from Canada in 2013 and came back at the end of 2015, it had changed so much, so unbelievably much, that nothing felt right. Everything felt off. Everything felt like just dinged up and broken, and nothing works. And it's weird because you bring up about the hat, and I've gotten really big into nostalgia lately. I was just talking to you about like, I'm like, for whatever reason, I never really liked them when they were like big, but I'm like really loving like whatever Limp Bizkit is doing right now. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing, but I'm like, I love the fact that they're still Limp Bizkit doing Limp Bizkit things in 2024, and the guy's got a giant beard now. And I couldn't stand Fred Durst, but now I'm like, I'm watching this, and I'm like, I'm time warped, and I'm like, oh, for some reason
he's stayed true to what he was.
They're just they had an album it was called Limp Bizkit Still Sucks. They know that people hate them, and they're doing this thing. And I got to tell you, man, like the stuff they're putting out lately it's banging. I love it. It's great. It just works for me. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, because it reminds me of a time in 1999 and 2000 when things were infinitely better than they are now. Just infinitely better than they are now. There is so trying to find that fit. What?
So I want to pivot.
Yeah.
So you made the point about that there's never that perfect fit, and I'm fully aware based on this clip.
My parents were. This is my home. I thought this was it this time.
Nah, homie, where you mate?
You like to see homos naked?
Homie, where you make it?
Yeah, you like to see homos naked. That's cool, man. Whatever.
No. Homie, where you make it? Home, where you make it?
Oh.
Everybody know that. Goddamn, boy.
God.
Apologies for the blast.
That's Joe Dirt, isn't it?
It is Joe Dirt.
That's an underrated movie.
Why can we not see it? You can't see it because I'm not going to get flagged by YouTube. I know. I know that you choose where your home is and you choose where your fit is, but I have this, like, I think there's an organ inside of me. If I went and got an MRI, they'd be like, what's this weird black mass? And it would be that there's an organ inside of me, metaphorically speaking, that just knows shit. This is the only way that I can explain why I'm always right.
I thought Chaco was always right. According to the lore.
but there's this piece of me that's just like always known things, and I've never been able to explain it, and I've never been able to justify it. It doesn't like fit any scientific studies. It's just this thing. It's just this like, this feeling that I trust. I've trusted it for years. It's never led me wrong. You can call it the great magnet. You can call it, you can say that I'm like getting voices,
intuition
on
you have
high,
good intuition.
Whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And what that part of me is telling me now is that St. Louis is not the end of the road. St. Louis is important. It's definitely been instructive. It's definitely changed who I am, but it's not where I'm going to end up. And so I was in Tulsa, and it was the 4th of July. And I went and delivered a piece of glass art to two of my very, very close friends. I often refer to myself, I'm the consigliere of their family. I've done I've done 2 of their 3 daughters' weddings, and the only reason why I didn't do the first one is because we hadn't met yet.
So
Uh,
you've married 3 of their daughters and divorced them 3 times.
no, I'm just on hand.
Yeah.
I'm the person when their family needs a person, that's who they call.
Mhm.
You know, I'm the person that gets
Doesn't
things
surprise
done.
me. You're a reliable, great friend.
And so I gave him this piece of glass art that I made, and we were talking, and I call him Doug. Doug left for the gig with the band that I've worked for many years, and uh, Deborah, his wife, was like, "Don't forget this little pack I packed for you of like cooling wraps and stuff because it was obscenely hot in Tulsa on the 4th of July." And of course, he leaves it right there inside the entryway. And she's just like, I knew he would forget that. And I was like, you know what? I'll run it by the gig. I've worked for those guys for years. They'll all be happy to see me. We'll make sure that Doug doesn't have a heat stroke during this gig. And she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here." And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. We're we're more than family at this point." And so I go run the thing over to him, and I was like, "You forgot this, you big idiot." And he's like, I need to pay you for this vase you made." And I was like, no, you don't."
No.
And he's like, no, you told me a price. And I said, no, I told you the price of other pieces that I had in the gallery. That wasn't a price of what the thing that I was making you was. The price of the thing I'm making you is $0 because we've been friends for fucking 12 plus years now. I am, and they collect glass art. Like this vase that I made them is in this amazing collection of
Oh,
so many other beautiful
cool.
pieces that like
Straight to the pool room.
just to be held in the same pedigree is an honor enough.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
kind of deal. But then I'm talking to the guys in the band, and the drummer, he's like, "You need to move back to Tulsa. You need to move back to Tulsa." And I was like, "Kevin, I can't do it. I'm not meant to be here. I love you guys, and I love working for you guys. You gave me so many great opportunities. You grew me. You guys are all family to me. But Tulsa's not where I'm supposed to be. Tulsa doesn't fit. Tulsa's my past, and I'll have to come back here. My family's here. I grew up here. I'm happy to come back here. I don't resent Tulsa. I'm not angry about going back. But that's not my end of the line."
I will say this. You're still young enough. I know I'm not going to play the old man thing, but you're still young enough uh to not have to settle yet.
That's what I'm counting on.
Like we have this term, people use it sometimes, forever home, right? Have you ever heard that term? Like we're
Yeah.
gonna get our forever home. And when we were building our place, we're like, look, we're gonna put the time in, we're gonna put the money in, and we're gonna make our forever home. And even though this is not perfect, and 60% of my neighbors hate my guts right now because of this legal case that's going on, there's this weird thing about when we're here that it is home. Like it is home.
Oh yeah.
And I actually drive past to get into there's 2 ways to get into my house, right? Like, cause I'm back here, there's 2 roads and you got to go like this. And sometimes the roads are really crappy on one side, so you got to use the other side. And sometimes it's the other way around because of the rain and dirt roads and stuff. Like I'm in the sticks, but, one of the ways passes a cemetery every single time. And so Catholics, what we do is we pray a Hail Mary every time we go by a cemetery, because you're praying for the souls in purgatory that might be, the people that were buried in that. And I actually started talking to my guy. I was like, I'm really starting to think about reserving some plots in this cemetery ahead of time for myself and my wife, because I'm pretty sure at this point in my life that's
This is where you're going.
my
This is where you're gonna be.
destination.
Yeah.
And it's right next to a Catholic chapel, and I see people praying in there all the time. So, and it's got a beautiful view of like one of the hillsides, and it's a beautiful spot, and it's like real close to my house, or really, really close to my property. So if I pass on my property and my kids, then at least if they stay here, then they can visit my grave nearby. But like that's the talk. Like I'm almost 45. That's not old by any means, but people die at 40, in their 40s. People die in their 50s. It
My
happens.
mentor died at 55.
It happens.
It's unfair.
It happens. But it's interesting because I don't want to get like I'm not dragging the show in this direction, but I'm going to say it, is that my mentality changed when I was in Calgary, because when we weren't making any friends with anybody, that's when I had my reversion, and I went back to my church of my childhood, and I started going to mass all the time. And I
So
started,
what you're telling me is I should go to Unitarian church because that was the church of my childhood.
that's not what I'm telling you. But like,
I will never go back to the Unitarian church. Those motherfuckers
should you.
are absolutely insane.
I started going to my church in my childhood, and then I became a Latin Mass Catholic, and my old church is very Novus Ordo, so it's very modern.
And
And
see,
so
I think that's beautiful. Like the ill fit wasn't an ill fit for you. There was an ill fit in the middle, right?
yes,
You came back to it.
yeah, and it was part of my journey.
I'm not going to throw my hat away.
No,
because it
no.
doesn't fit right now. Because I know that there'll be a time, there'll be a challenge
There'll
in
be
my
a
life
fishing
where I will
trip or
want
something.
this again.
Yeah.
Like, and there are days when I cross the bridge on the Mississippi and I see the arch and I feel like I'm coming home.
It's a good
And
feeling.
there are days where I'm so done with this city that I just want to. I hope that a tactical nuclear strike hits and just fucking wipes all these motherfuckers out. But what I know deep down inside is that this is probably not where I'm going to end up.
But you'll
and
know
I have to
when the
make
time is
decisions
right.
that are based on that.
You'll know. You're an intuitive guy. And what for us was, so we started going to the Latin Mass in Calgary, and then when we came to Paraguay, the Latin Mass here is like every other week because we have to share our priests with a congregation in Argentina. So in between, we went to like a modernist church, and I remember my wife and I went to it, and it was this gorgeous, amazing, perfectly like just pristine, historic church, almost like the one you went to go and check out that was near you.
Yeah.
But like this mass was terrible. It was the worst. My wife just turns to me as we're leaving and she goes, "Well, that was a mass and it didn't feel right. It was a bad fit." We moved to Paraguay partly too as well because we're like we're Catholic, and this is a very Catholic country, very Catholic. And so there are things that we love about it. Like a lot of the street names are named after Catholic saints. There are statues of Catholic saints. There are statues of Jesus all over the place. And that was one thing when I went to go and visit Buck that really hit me when I was in North Carolina, when I was driving to go see him because we were staying in Raleigh. And so I was driving out to go see him.
That's a
and
ways.
The billboards. What's that?
The Raleigh to Statesville.
Yeah.
That's a ways.
It's a little bit of a ways. Yeah. But like, it was interesting because I went to a mass in the morning, the day I went to go see him. And he said to me, he goes, "Didn't you feel weird? Like you don't know anybody there?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I know 3 persons there. I know Jesus is there. And I know, it's the same as back home." And so I felt at home going to the mass there. And then when we found the Latin Mass down here, it was fantastic because like when we finally got to go to the Latin Mass here, these were my people. They were exactly the same as the people. Well, not exactly. They cut the line and they're Paraguayan, but like their thinking was a lot more along like none of them were vaccinated. Nobody was wearing a mask. Like you could have a real conversation with them. And I was like, boom, again, I'm home, right? Like I felt like I was at home. And so, I always have to kind of think about that sometimes. So like when you talk about the hat and you talk about stuff that you try to do to kind of feel normal again or try to get back onto a path from before, that's where I'm at now. Because unfortunately, like, yeah, I can go and like be like, yeah, man, like this Limp Bizkit song is awesome. And I never liked them before, but like it, blah, blah, blah. At least it can remind me of a time. But that doesn't always work, right? Like there's movies that I absolutely loved. I rewatched them and they suck. Like I don't like them anymore, or they say too many JCs and GDs, and I just like I'm so repulsed. I'm like I can't watch this anymore. And I started to realize I'm like that's not where I'm going to find my contentment. That's not where I'm going to find my peace. So where I find my peace is and when I'm in that part where everything's kind of going to crap, my faith, my theology actually embraces a form of suffering as meritorious. And so when I have to remind myself that like I put my faith into this decision, right? I didn't say God told me go move to where I'm living to. I just know that like where I'm going, if I'm feeling off track, then maybe I need to kind of focus on that portion because the real end destination, hopefully for me and my family, is heaven. And I know that's going to, it's going to turn some people off, but that's truly where my focus has to be. Because the thing is that, it's like, I was just saying to my son today, I was like, here's the movies that are coming out in the next year. There's going to be Shrek 5 and there's going to be Super Mario Brothers 2. And I don't get any joy at all anymore from reading about any new shows or movies that are coming out. None of it brings me joy.
I finally saw a movie in theaters again this year.
What'd you see?
You're not going to like it.
Of course I'm not.
I went and saw The Birdcage.
Oh, okay. Listen, I don't dislike the movie. I just disagreed that it was wholesome.
This is behind the scenes. We had a whole argument about The Birdcage.
This was before we had a real good connection afterwards. Yeah,
but they were doing a screening of The Birdcage at the Alamo Draft House, and I was like,
there you go.
I could go see the fucking Birdcage. And a coworker and I were both like very excited for the potentiality of seeing The Birdcage, and I was like, I'll go back to the movie theater to see The Birdcage. Why not?
Yeah.
The modern movies all suck, so might as well go see something I know that I'm going to enjoy.
They're so bad. And that's the thing is like, there's this episode of South Park, probably came out around like 2010 or 2011, where Stan just starts like hearing everything as like fart sounds, and or everything, and like everything he's trying to watch is just poop coming out of things, like, and he can't like anything anymore. And that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I can't like anything anymore. Although, like I gave up on.
I am. Like I talked about on the last episode, like I watched Ted Lasso, and the first season came out in like 2019, I think, and I was just like, I remember when it came out and it was new, and I was just like, oh, it's gonna suck. It's a modern television series. It's gonna suck, and I was almost embarrassed at how much I enjoyed the first season and like really liked it, and eventually ended up coming to love the show. And
I'm gonna check it out, actually.
Finishing it, and I was just like, wow. I'm so stunned that in 2020 to 2023 or whenever, like whatever the window of the show coming out was, that they made a show that It had a little bit of message in it. It had a little bit of those things, but it didn't have so much to just ruin it. That it was likable characters. It was understandable narratives. And I was just like, I almost hated myself for liking it so much, you
Well,
know, because so much shit these days is like media is just awful.
well,
On
creativity
so
died.
many levels. Yeah.
Creativity died. I don't know if it was in 2012 or 2010 or even 2004. I don't know when it died, but it died.
It probably died in like 2001, but it was one
Right.
of those. It was wounded. It was mortally wounded in 2001, and it just slowly bled out
Like
for like a
there's some good movies that like came
yeah
out
no
after that. Like
there
Tropic
were,
Thunder is a great movie. I think it's like one of the funniest movies.
but the
And
same
that
way you've been hit with an arrow and you have to kind of defend your family from a werewolf, and
yeah.
you summon the
Yeah.
strength and you make a Tropic Thunder. And then in 2012, 2014, it finally just kind of completely bled out, and there just hasn't been anything good since.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Well, because but that's how I feel about it. Uh, like when COVID came and my hockey team was like ahead of the curve on everybody else for banning non-vaccinated people from entering the games, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm never giving you my money again. I'm never giving them my money again. I'm just never giving them my money again. But I give them my attention. Now, the reason why came back to watching hockey, I watch highlights in the morning with my kids. And the reason why I do it is because I loved watching hockey with my dad. Hockey is a big reason why I'm a writer today, is because I used to write into like sports talk radio and have them read my emails on the radio. And the host on the Canadian national program actually wrote me back and was like, "Oh, who are you really? You're a professional writer." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Well, you should be." And that was kind of what got me into what I do. So I put on hockey for my kids to teach them, and I like force them. I force them. It's like 10 minutes. We're gonna watch the highlights of the games, and then I'm gonna test you on who the players are. I'm gonna bring up all these things because I know they don't really like it, but deep down, the way I look at it is this:
You're planting a seed.
I am planting a seed because,
and someday they'll watch those games because they'll
and
remember.
think about dad.
Yeah,
That's what I'm doing. Is like I love baseball because of my dad. I love I love westerns, and I respect war movies because of my dad. I don't like war movies, but when I see like the Bridge over River Kwai, that I'm like, that's my dad. That's just like my dad's movie. And
I'm the
so
same
I'm
way,
doing
like
the
that.
same thing with my kids with hockey, professional wrestling, and westerns. Those
Yeah.
those are the three things.
are three.
And now I'm like teaching my kids about late 90s, early 2000s music. So and I'm also teaching, like I actually put on like Nirvana Nevermind for my son, and like I was like, look, you may not like it, right? But you have to understand how important this album is, because it literally changed music for like a while. And so, doing those kind of things. But like I was talking about this with my friend Simon. Like he's a British guy that lives near me, and big music guy. And so we always talk music. But I was saying to him, I was like, is there any good music being made today? Because I wouldn't know. Like the algorithm on Spotify, I'm not learning about any of this stuff. And he's like, actually, there is some good music. You just have to really hunt for it. You have to really hunt for it. And I was like, you know what? I don't have time for hunting for new music. So it's just not going to happen. Like you're just going to have to tell me about it, and then maybe we'll get around to it. But yeah, when it comes to the ill fit of these things, it's like I've come to the conclusion that like I'm one of the ugly stepsisters in Cinderella trying to cram my foot into that little tiny glass slipper, that it's never going to happen. But like, just get used to the fact that like, just accept your status, accept where you are, and try to find your joy and content inwardly and not outwardly, because there's not going to be a movie I'm excited about anymore. That's just dead. It's dead. There's not going to be a new album I'm going to rush out to buy because that doesn't happen anymore. And I'm going to check out Ted Lasso because like I'm going to check it out because if you're tolerating it at this point in time, I'm going to check it out. And also I like soccer, so
It's not really about soccer.
no, it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. Soccer's the kind of the underlying tie together, right? So
Give it the first season.
okay,
And not one of those things where it's just like the first 3 episodes suck and you got to give it finish the first season, and if you like it, keep watching.
sure.
If you're not 100%, first season is a good standalone all by itself.
I'll check it out though, because like you mentioned characters, and that's the thing that I feel like when people are bitching about the Star Wars shows, at the core, their biggest problem is they don't have characters. Like
Ted
they don't have-
Lasso is full of characters, and it's also infuriating because they create bad guy characters and then they redeem them
good.
over and over and over again, where you're just like, you want to hate a person, but then they're like, oh, now this person's a good guy, and you're just like, I kind of like him now. Fuck, I'm really
face
annoyed that I
turns.
like this character. Anyway,
We've been
let me wrap this up by saying
Sure.
that's my issue and ill fit.
We're going long again. It's my fault.
It's an El Chaco episode, so they're always long ones. But yeah, that's where I am. That's something I'm dealing with. That's what the show exists for. I hope people can relate. I don't know. I'm sure people can relate to that. You know, we've all been in these moments in time. And I know that there's something on the other side, and I know what I have to deal with them. Like I have a great community. I have this amazing community in making glass art. I have some really great friends here. One of the things I love about St. Louis is the close friends that I have cultivated since coming here, and the friends that I knew who were here before I moved here. And I almost feel like destiny, fate, karma, whatever you want to call it, like this was definitely a step. St. Louis is a place that I would needed to be. This is a step that I needed to take. It's just not the last step. And so
You're building your story. So
I'm open to staying here as long as it takes to figure out what the next step is. And I'm hoping
don't force it. Whatever you
I'm
do,
hoping
don't
that
force
there is going to be more information before that happens. So that's our episode. This is now 3 weeks in a row of Here's What I Don't Get, which is a new record.
The longest running consecutive podcast in the last 3 weeks.
In the last 3 weeks.
In this quarter.
But yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with the show for all these years. 7 years of Here's What I Don't Get. We've
cool.
come such a long way. Something that I'm learning as listening to the old show. And thank you all the listeners who have stood by us as we continue to figure out what the show is going to continue to be. I think there's probably a world where we reopen the Patreon in a
tiny little pay for the StreamYard kind of way, right? Like,
I do want to reduce the number of tiers and reduce the amount of bonus content that we're producing. But yeah, it would be great to have someone pay that, to have the fans, or to recoup that $50 a month
think of
for
it as
the
cooperative.
StreamYard. It's like
Yeah.
$150 a year for the website, and then it's another $60 a year for the domain. I don't remember what it all costs, but it would be great to recoup some of those costs. I've been just paying those, which I don't mind. But I also don't want to like relaunch that and just be like, start paying us money again, you motherfuckers. Like I want to have a plan. There's a lot of stuff we have to figure out. We're figuring out the news segment. We're figuring out what the schedule is. So,
oh, by the way, about the news segment, I've got allergies, so anytime I've touched my nose today, you can't accuse me of anything. It's really just the mango tree is blossoming.
Well,
the news.
El Chaco has kids, so he's not doing anything stupid.
Oh yeah, people with kids don't do anything like that at all. Yeah, and here I was already talking about medicating my kids, but
spite producers will get special treatment as far as what the show happens. But yeah, I'm figuring that out. I'm hoping to have some more like mental capacity for things. Although who knows,
well, and like in terms of availability, because I like that you've opened it up that the other co-hosts can come on when they want to come on, and like I'm available this time every week. I can make this a thing. So long as I don't want to crowd it. So if there's like more than one person, it's always good for two people to have the back and forth.
On the other hand, I do want to have some 3 for episodes, maybe some 4 for episodes, maybe some guests. But the idea is it's the same bat time, same bat channel. 7:30 Central is what I'm going on Tuesdays. 7:30 Central is what I'm going for. If I'm not feeling it, or if I have a show, or if I just don't want to do the show, we're just not going to do it.
Or you let me do it.
No. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
That's the show. This has been Here's What I Don't Get. I'm Tab Burt.
I'm El Chaco.
We'll catch you guys next time.
Ciao, ciao.
If you want to call into the Here's What I Get hotline, call us at 704-750-9434 and tell us what you don't get. We do not have any voicemails this week. I guess people have not gotten the memo that the show is like back to a semi-regular podcast and not just a kind of whenever you feel like it podcast. So if you sons of bitches could get on your voicemails so we could stop being embarrassed. I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
Can I just point something out?
Please.
Curse is gone. Curse is gone. It's lifted. I got through this whole thing. My feed never went away. Your feed never went away. I mean, let's honor this. This is big.
This is you were absolutely
this is
right.
Big. Because I said to my wife as I was coming out to the office here, I said to her, I'm like, I'm not feeling so good because I ate too much pork.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, not now, not this, not again.
Yeah. The last episode we did together, we hit middle of the episode, and I was just like, oh, blah, 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 the curse. And then immediately Chaco got kicked out of the stream. Just right on the second. It was so embarrassing. So yeah, we did. We made it all the way to the end.
Yep. Curse is
nailed
gone.
It.
I want to say also thank you to everybody watching live. Love the comments. It makes the whole atmosphere way better. And
yeah. So I pop the comments up on the screen while we don't always address them, but I try and make sure what you say is seen. And we're reading them.
Yeah, check them out on YouTube.
But we don't always acknowledge them because we're kind of in our train of thoughts on the show. So yeah, it's love doing the show live and having the commenters. So thank you so much.
That's a big difference from the opening episodes too, because we were never live.
Yeah,
it was just I tried to do it with OBS once or twice, and either my computer wasn't fast enough or Buck's internet wasn't fast enough. We were never able to do it. And I remember the first time I ever saw Here's What I Don't Get live, where you guys were streaming together in the same place. And I was like, this is cool. This is really cool. Yeah. And so big shout out to everybody who shows up and participates. And so if you if you're listening right now on audio only,
join us
7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern. I guess that would make it 6:30 Mountain. and 5:30 Pacific. There's my my time
7:30
zone.
Mountain, 6:30 Pacific.
No, it'd be 6:30 Mountain because you're Central at 7:30.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You confused me by going Central to Eastern.
And then there's like an
don't get
Atlantic
time zones.
There's an Atlantic time, which would put it at 9:30, and it would be 10 o'clock in Newfoundland. So there you go.
I'd also like to point out that I have consumed another one of these 30-something ounce things of water.
Don't bring the microphone with you to the bathroom.
Not yet. Yeah, that's some bonus content. You want to hear the pee streams?
You know what your bonus content will be is me rattling off talking about soccer while you were off draining the major. So thanks again, everybody.
Yep, we'll catch you next time.
Ciao, ciao.